on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC reality check for the second time this week with the state of wrestling, and that is Jake fucking DeMarco. What's going on, buddy?
What's going on, my friend? Yeah, we're coming in hot. We're
We're double
feeling a little
dipping.
little bit of the asshole pod time, but we're ready.
It is. I'm saying right now, like the title of this podcast is going to be "Everybody's an Asshole," but in comparison to yesterday, where we were doing a positive podcast and I was dragging ass because I was tired, I'm actually in a really fucking good mood. So maybe I'm the asshole.
Hey, it works
Um,
out.
I said this to you. I think I said this to you sometime over the course of the weekend before we got into like, hey, let's talk about the shows that just happened.
Yeah.
Basically, a lot of little stories that happened in a very, very short span of time, and I walked away with the mentality of maybe everybody's just an asshole. So I started
That
collecting
or
these
we'll
little
get to it
headlines.
eventually.
Well, this is true, but I thought maybe let's just do it. Let's not super deep dive on like one person or one event or one thing. But I've got a list of things that have been in the news, and I'll say some of it's a little broader, some of it's in the past like 2 weeks or so, but a very, very small span of time. And it's not always the fans, it's not always the wrestlers, it's not even always the companies. Some of these are gonna have a little bit of a who's actually an asshole, but everybody's kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
So let's dive in with something we kind of teased and touched upon on last night's pod. Please go check out last night's pod as well, talking about my experience being at Northern Rising Live and some well out of date fallout from Backlash. That was a lot of fun. It was the
Out of date, and
WWE
it's
show
only
for
been
WWE
4
fans.
days. That's the funny
Yeah.
part. In this day and age, like you don't do a review the moment of, and you're like, is there a point? Sadly, it's kind of
Yeah.
that mentality, but it is
Well, leaving
often
it
how it works.
I will say, leaving it to our typical recording days of like Wednesday and Thursday, I had a feeling that there would be more Fallout stuff on Raw, and it didn't quite give us a lot to bite into immediately after.
Yeah.
So maybe poor planning on my part, but
No,
I
but
wasn't
Raw's also
available on the
having
night,
this
and I didn't.
very strange issue of, oh shit, we have to book everything super goddamn quick because we only have a week in between every PLE now.
Yeah, but to be
So,
fair as well, the way they do the short pay-per-views, like say you do a pay-per-view every 2 weeks. I'm
yeah.
exaggerating, right? But
Well, that's what they're doing
You
now.
you
So,
you well, you booked, Gunther and or sorry, not Gunther, Orton and Cena for this one, so you had that title match. Saturday night's main event in 2 weeks, you've got a world title match, but you were booking that before Backlash happened.
yes,
So
exactly.
I don't think things are getting a 2-week build. Things are getting longer builds, and the
Well,
matches themselves are kind
usually
of
there's
taking
one
turns on
match, I'll give
pay-per-views.
you. Usually there's one match, and the rest of the card tends to be built around that
Hmm.
idea.
I
Because
don't know,
Logan and
the
Jay was
mid-card.
supposed to
Yeah,
originally be at Backlash, and then it was
okay.
moved to Saturday night's main event. So I still don't know the reason as to why it was even moved, but
I think they just wanted to stick to that 5-match
I think
format.
so.
But
Yeah.
I will say, like, the Becky Lyra thing is coming off the back of Mania, which feels like a million years ago and also feels like yesterday.
Right?
The general picture around the Intercontinental Championship has kind of been fluctuating over the past little while. The problems between Judgment Day that fed into that match have been going on for a while. The problems with Jacob Fatu that led into the other match have been going on for a while. We got the surprise there.
Of
Priest and
Jeff
Drew is
Cobb.
not. Yeah, Priest and Drew is not a new story either. Um,
No, and
so
before
the
we get into
matches, the match.
your questions too, I do have one
Yeah,
for
yeah,
you that I want to address
sure. What's
quickly,
up?
and it is relevant to everything you just brought up as well. What do you think the difference is there? Because they brought in Gabe Kidd last night, and that's the supposed
Okay,
smart fans, smart audience. Yet he
okay.
got zero reaction. But they bring in Jeff Cobb on a Backlash show,
Hmm?
and he gets one of the biggest pops of the night. Eh,
Okay, well, this is gonna work fine because the Jeff Cobb story is one of my "Who's the asshole" things,
ah, see, we're
and
thinking
not
alike.
and not not directed at Jeff Cobb specifically, but it just does bring up the more general thing that you and I have talked about for quite a while now. Jeff Cobb came in, and in no short order, it went from he's this great powerhouse that has had a couple of spots on AEW and the Indies and whatever and da 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 to Oh, I guess WWE waited till he was washed. I guess they paid him less or something.
He's not
You
worth it
know,
anymore. He's difficult to work with. Haven't you heard?
apparently, but have you heard this though? Have you heard this though? ECW legend Rhino, who I just saw on Saturday, along with Gabe Kidd, by the way. So this is
Yeah,
all laced in together. What comes around is all around. Um, Rhino, heavily tied to ECW, which is under the
absolutely.
WWE banner, tied to WWE as well, did a one shot at AEW. And now all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, they just picked up Jeff Cobb so that they could have their version of AEW's Rhino. And I'm like, AEW's Rhino isn't a thing.
Yeah, they don't have
A
Rhino. He showed up for one booking, got paid, and left. And it's not like he's saying,
Yeah,
"Hey, I'm
and it
making
was
a
a
thing of
promotional,
this."
and like I said, like Rhino is that guy that kind of goes everywhere.
Yeah,
Like,
he's been
congratulations, he's that guy.
exactly.
Congratulations, you can walk into any dressing room and get yourself a payday. Grab the bag. I'm happy
Oh,
for that guy.
absolutely. I mean,
Seeing
he's
him live
literally
was
been
awesome.
everywhere from Lucha Underground
Yeah,
onward. Like you've seen this guy, he appears in some way, shape, or form, and that also speaks to the career that he's had. He's been a
but
real namesake for a
it's
long
just the
time.
most, it's just the most obvious example we've gotten yet, because the other people that have come into WWE, we've had builds, we've had promos, we've had teasers and hints or whatever. So they started like pre-hating, getting pre-mad is the new term now.
Yes,
Um, but on the night, the minute he was revealed, oh, that's a letdown. Oh, I guess he's slumming in WWE, da 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 da, whatever.
he's
But
not
like,
trying anymore. He gave up.
he hasn't done anything.
He just showed up
Like
and was kind of
he
a
came
quick
in and
factor in the
trucked people.
match. Yeah.
He came in and trucked people. But it's wild to me. It's wild to me the entire, oh, they thought they were going to get Sammy, they thought they were going to get KO. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh well, it's their loss. They're dumbasses. They're going to regret it later.
But what kills me,
Stepping
I think
back,
it comes down to is just the
mm,
understanding of the story. I think that really is the
oh yeah,
difference between both sides. That Tony had no real story. We don't know why Gabe Kidd is teaming with the Death Riders, and he was kind of
yeah.
arguing with the Death Riders, so we didn't really know what was going on. Like, is he on his own? Is he doing something just with Mox? Like, there's a lot of questions there. As where when you get to, you know, the WWE side, it's like, oh, obviously he's with
Well,
Fatu
here's the
and
thing with Gabe
Solo.
Kidd.
It makes perfect
I
sense.
I really enjoyed Gabe Kidd at Northern Rising. Really wrecked through the match with Michael Oku and Speedball Bailey. Did a little bit of the anti-Canadian stuff on the mic. You're just mini Britain, all this type of stuff. But I'm not familiar with him. Like I say, I've seen the one match that he had with Kenny, and then I saw the match that I was there for live. Right?
Yeah.
You can't do, and WWE is guilty of it too, but they're better at it in the sense of somebody shows up in a hoodie, holy fuck, it's Jey Uso or it's Jimmy Uso. It's somebody that's already in. It's somebody that's a part of the story. They just kind of snuck in under false pretenses. Or
Yeah.
like the cameraman takes the mask off during COVID and
We
it's
just
Roman.
had, yeah, we just literally had, Jay celebrating after Raw and Logan hit him in the head with the,
Yeah,
titanium
exactly.
fist
But
wearing
they're
the
doing it
hoodie.
with somebody that's on the show. You don't
Yeah.
want to have, and to be totally fair to AEW, they haven't had this kind of a thing in a while, but I go back to the early days when they first revealed the first iteration of what the fuck, Evil Uno and Stu Grayson, their
Yeah, the
group,
Dark Order. Yes.
the Dark Order. And there was the big reveal and everybody kind of went, "Okay, what the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
I think there was enough people, and not, this is no slight on Gabe Kidd, but like, here's a guy in a hoodie. His face was kind of like half showing, and he was hiding,
Obscured.
sort of
Yeah.
like obscured. And then when you finally got the reveal, I get the feeling that there was a little bit of, okay, who is that? Like, there's a lot of bald dudes in wrestling,
Yeah, and that's the thing, and then they
which
also
sucks
go
for
ahead and
him.
they say on the the telecast like, oh, who is this? Who is this? We don't know. And then WWE, it's, oh my God, it's the biggest signing ever. It's Jeff Cobb.
Yep,
I can't believe
yep.
he's here finally. So AEW, you're getting a question mark. Who is this? How does his allegiance fall in line? Like, who is he? What is he? Why is he? As where WWE, you're getting the simple, hey, he belongs, he fits. This is what's going down. So
But it's
I,
just,
I think that's
it's,
because Tony just, I mean, he's got the
he-
talent. We know he does. It's just the
yep,
story. It feels like, and that's
yep.
why the
And the thing
fans are
is,
a bit
like,
delusional.
for me, because people were talking about it for a long ass time, it's like Hikuleo and Zilla Fatu, who I've only heard of so far. I've seen Hikuleo like twice when they did the like TNA version of Bullet Club with Jay White and a couple of other people. I've seen
Yes.
him fight like once or twice. I don't think I've ever seen Zilla Fatu in my life, which is fine. But I've heard the name, like the conversations are happening.
You knew of him, yes.
I've seen Jeff Cobb, like, to their credit, I saw Jeff Cobb for the first time in AEW, right? But
Yes.
you know, more than knowing who it is when he steps out, it's knowing that that conversation is happening.
There you
But
go.
I just, it's just the most recent example, and like I said, this is in no way to single out Jeff Cobb, and I'm not taking shots at Gabe Kidd either.
No, certainly
When we're
not. It
talking
has
about
nothing to do with
AEW
Gabe
stuff,
Kidd. It was how he was
it's the
presented.
presentation, right?
Exactly.
And
I mean,
I'm not gonna lie, when he first popped out at Backlash, I didn't realize who it was either. So I was doing the
and
wait, who
that's
is that?
okay. And
Yeah.
that's
Again,
okay.
and he's being brought in as somebody else's like sidekick, backup, heavy or whatever. So
Yeah, he's the
in that,
muscle, the hired muscle. Exactly.
yeah, but he's a lower person in the group if there's
For
still a
now,
group
you
left.
could say
What
Jacob
and
Fatu was lower than
oh,
Solo, and now he's higher. So I mean, it's all about
for
again
real, yeah, yeah. But it's
presentation. But
you're not presenting, hey, here's this brand new name, be excited. You're like, oh, Solo's just brought in a guy. Let's see what this guy's got going on.
yeah,
But my point for bringing this up, and like I say, it's not specific to Jeff Cobb. It blows my mind how fast the switch goes to, oh, they were never that good anyway, or
I
they're
know.
washed, they're not as good as they. Stephanie chose WWE because AEW didn't lock them down, or lock her down rather,
Yes.
when she did the thing with Monet. Their mistake, they would probably admit it themselves, to be fair. Julia chose WWE, immediately the switch.
Yes.
Motor City Machine Guns, which everybody thought was a lock and which would have broken my heart.
I
I'm
know.
not gonna lie. Motor City Machine Guns, immediately the switch flipped. Ricky Starks, the switch kind of flipped while he was still in AEW.
Yeah, but the
Because
point
people
is
knew
there, like
the writing was
people.
on the wall.
Yeah, but people were
Um,
excited. I mean, and you can say that about
tend to
people
the
in WWE as well. Look at Shotzi. The
yeah,
writing was on the wall for her. She knew that she was on the way out. That's why she left
yeah.
that great promo that she did on Twitter before she was released. Because she
But I
knows,
don't
hey, I'm
think
going to use
anybody on
this
our
to get
side of
me
the coin.
hired. Said she's
Now
not worth it and she's
yeah,
less than. And if she goes to AEW, we're not going to be like, oh, they got a waste of a talent. We're going to be like, good for her. She got a chance to
yeah.
keep earning a
I go back.
paycheck.
I go back to the Deanna Prazo thing, where the most
Yes.
honest I could be with it is, personally, I'm kind of bummed. Would have loved to see her in WWE. She was in TNA. I have to be realistic about the size of stage that TNA provides at this point. She's on a bigger stage. Now, how she's being used, that becomes a separate conversation. That's not where I'm going. She's on a bigger stage. Good for her, right? Same thing with Josh
Exactly.
Alexander. Josh Alexander, who just became the MLP Canadian Men's Champion, who's basically the king of Canadian wrestling.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see him in WWE, and we speculated it for
Especially
a
in
long time.
NXT. I mean, we had that booked for a year.
But I'm not going to pretend that Josh Alexander of all people sucks because
No.
he went to AEW.
You're not going to stop
Or
supporting him. You're not going to stop
no,
watching.
exactly.
That's the thing that I feel like when people go to WWE though, AEW fans do stop watching.
And it's true. Look at Sean
You're
Spears.
more anti AEW than I am, but I
Yeah,
come at it more of like a critical stance, and you've got a bit of feeling and heart to it. Like I go
yeah,
by the numbers, and you go by the opinions online that rightfully are assholish, and
yeah.
as we're bringing up,
I'm neither of us.
are
Neither of
right.
us. Okay, no. I wasn't going there. It's not a matter of right. We're all doing opinions here. I
Exactly.
don't
I
think.
want to
I
make that
don't think
known.
either of us wants AEW to fail.
No.
You actively want them to succeed.
Yeah.
And I'm just standing here like, if they fail, they fail. I'm not hoping
Exactly.
for it, but if it falls, it falls.
No,
Like
because the
I'm doing the Ivan Drago
yeah.
thing of like, if he dies, he
If he
dies.
does, he does. Yeah, exactly.
And
But
I
you need
mean,
that
there
because
there is that vulture mentality of any company, be it WWE, AEW, and I've got a bit of it as well. There is that bit of a vulture mentality of, if AEW did fall, man, there's a couple of people I would love to see come over. But like, that's not the
absolutely,
same as I'm gonna pretend they suck because they didn't. Look at like
exactly.
the whole Sean Spears, Ricky Starks, Ethan Page trifecta. Oh, NXT is just like friggin' Collision. Oh, you mean Collision when Punk was helping run it? The only time people ever actually watched Collision.
Watched and attended, it feels like,
Well,
because now
I
we
mean,
see
the
the
amount of people that
shows.
soured on. Okay, if anybody, and I'm take away my opinion of the Bucks, right? But if anybody's going to be held on a high like AEW platform, it's going to be the Bucks, Kenny and Cody, who created the company,
Yes,
right? With
absolutely.
help, obviously, with the funding from the cons and all that kind of thing. But like the inspiration, the spark. Oh, I bet we can fill that building in Chicago and let's go make some history,
Yep,
whatever the case may be. One of the people that created the company that you love so much happened to flip over to the other side. And how many people, not as vocally now, but initially when that first happened, when the WrestleMania happened and Seth Rollins had the mystery opponent, worst kept secret in wrestling,
yeah,
and Kingdom hit at WrestleMania before, I'm sorry, the biggest audience that Cody Rhodes is going to perform in front of.
absolutely. And you know
And
what kills
I'm
me?
not I'm not doing the number thing to rub it in all you guys are shit because your numbers are small, but
No.
you cannot blame a wrestler. Ray Phoenix, who's another one, oh, he's washed now. Like, oh, you should have seen him when he was good in his prime. I'm like, what? You mean like a year ago when he was in the company that you like? Ray Phoenix, and this is like no dig on Rey Mysterio. Like we want
No.
Rey Mysterio to be healed and proper and all that kind of thing, right? Ray Phoenix finally got out of Guantanamo Bay, debuted on SmackDown, out of the blue. I mean, I'm sure he was suggested by Rey Mysterio. There was a whole lucha story going on there.
But
But
still, out of
basically,
nowhere,
basically out of the
basically,
blue in 3 weeks, got to debut at WrestleMania.
in front of 60 plus thousand fans and got the great ovation that he got. And
Yeah.
that's my point. Like,
Oh, but he got buried. He got buried like Joe
right?
Hendry got buried.
You're talking about, oh well, we can't criticize them because it's, oh, we're only thinking about the numbers. No, we like TNA. TNA is smaller than AEW most times in
Yeah.
attendance and figures and all of it,
Well, but here's the
and
thing though,
they're
right?
putting on a better product. That's why.
We're NXT guys, and that's going
Yes.
to factor in later on in this conversation. We're NXT guys. TNA is bigger than NXT,
Yeah.
and I
But
know that's a weird
NXT
conversation to
feels
have.
bigger, right? Because NXT is supposed to be
I don't know.
developmental.
I think they're pretty even.
They
I
they
think
are
it's a
they're
weird
presented on an
conversation to have.
even level, and it is weird because
Yes.
TNA is its own company, and NXT is supposed
It's
to
a
be
weird conversation to
developmental.
have because you can't say NXT is small because NXT is part of WWE and WWE is huge.
Yeah.
But it's the only separate brand in WWE that feels like a separate brand.
You could even bring up
Especially
AAA now as well, with them being much
especially when
smaller than
especially when the main
before.
roster sucked back in the day. The AAA thing has my curiosity peaked. I'm happy for them to have the additional funding and all the benefits that I spoke about in my solo pod where I showed exactly how much I don't know about AAA
Absolutely. But my
a
thing that
couple of
kills
pods
me
ago.
is this. They said Cody did all he could in EAEW. Oh, he had to leave because he did all he could. What
Hmm?
drugs are they smoking? Because I want some. When was Cody the
Hmm.
world champ? When was he a heel? When was he, in a
I
faction? When there was so much left on
okay,
Cody's
to
plate.
again to be fair, I think I've heard it not from him, but I've heard it speculated by others that he did the thing with MJF where if he lost, he couldn't go for the world title.
Yeah.
And he kind of put himself at a stand where he's like, no, we're gonna be the company. This is gonna be the story where that stipulation actually matters.
And he did
So
that because of the pressure from fans saying, oh,
mm,
the EVPs are just going to book themselves to win everything. So we might
well, they
as
did.
well. Eventually, but Cody was
Everybody
not the main
else
champ, and they did down the line, but it also they did it at a
for the
time
first
where it
little
was
while.
necessary too. The first little while they didn't. They let other people
For the
get the belts and
for
shine.
the first little while, the first couple of champions were two in two categories. When they first started, every champion, I mean, with the exception of maybe the tag, but I'm looking more at the world title. All your first couple of champions until they got to MJF was either look at this name that we stole from WWE or one of the EVPs.
Yeah, Jericho, then Moxley, then Kenny, then Hangman. And
Mhm.
Hangman's in the elite as well, and then everything that
I'm
happened
so
with
glad that I
Punk.
can say I
But
saw MJF before AEW was a thing. It was
right.
by only a couple of months, but it was MJF versus Josh Alexander, and it was fucking fantastic.
And
I
he was
just
lighting up the independent scene like no other for a damn good reason. And that's
mm,
just the thing, though. Whether Cody was an EPP or not, them saying he did all he could, under the story guidance that was presented by Tony Khan. You know, it's still
Yeah.
it wasn't where, hey, this guy, he should still be. No, Cody still had a lot left to accomplish, to achieve. He could have been so much
Mhm.
more, but they booked him in such a way that it was detrimental to his character and his career
Well, they
because
booked him
the
into a
fans
corner
turned
where
against him.
either he well, they booked him into a corner in the sense of either he was going to be trapped, like glass ceiling style, or he was going to break the glass ceiling and be looked at as a hypocrite.
Yeah, he was Mr. America, and now he's got his black
Mm.
wife, so he's ending racism, and he's gonna stop a go-go
Fuck.
and defend America, and it
Oh,
just got
fuck.
very messy because
It
of the
was very messy.
stories they fed to him.
That
He
was
hasn't had
okay, and
one issue since being on WWE. Name one fault or one bad moment Cody's had since coming to WWE. I can't
no,
think
you can't.
of one. Honest to God, he's the one person I cannot think he hasn't had a bad match, a bad promo, a bad segment. Everything
See,
he's
and here's the
done
thing:
has
the
worked.
only criticisms I have of Cody are things that are like personal to my taste. Like
Absolutely.
he cries way too much. That
Yes.
works for some people. Doesn't necessarily work for me. In
He's
the
very
he doesn't do.
emotional.
He's very emotional, and the sad thing is, I think it's genuine, but it comes off as being put on a little bit.
Yes.
But he's got a grasp on it. They don't do the thing anymore where everybody he's fighting, the first thing that comes to mind is I'm going to take a dig at your dad, or
Yeah.
I'm going to remind you that I was in NXT, so I spent more time with your dad than you did. Like, can we please just like
That or
even
you
when I
get the silly, you're not all you're cracked up to be because you're just the nepotism line. It's always like you said, with the dad
yeah.
in some way, shape, or form. There's other families.
I
You're
don't
not the
and see
only.
I don't even think it's nepotism. I just think it's like, okay, I'd like to speak for myself. It's a very different version of what Charlotte Flair deals with that nobody
Okay.
wants to talk about.
Yeah, as where
But
no one
like
praises Rick. Yeah, she's not getting the praise. She's getting
no,
the
the
jeers.
assumption is that she got there because of her dad, but like look at how people okay, very different from Dusty, but look at how they see Rick.
Yeah.
Like being Rick's daughter ain't exactly going to help you in 2025.
No. When she came into the company, he was viewed in a better light, but that's
Mm.
since been ruined.
Apparently he am I losing my mind, or is he like actually advertised to show up at Collision in like 2 weeks for some random like cross promotional thing?
I
I thought I
s
saw that on the wavelength
I
somewhere.
saw that somewhere too, and I just didn't
Okay.
look further into it, honestly. I was
But
like,
I
"Ah,
just like it's so there's a lot of people, and I go to Josh Alexander, I go to Will Ospreay, I go to Jay White, even though we haven't seen Jay White in a while. I go to Athena as one of the top examples. There's people over there that I would love to have over here, but it's not going to make me pretend that they suck. And Jeff Cobb was just like the latest example of it. But the stack is really stacking up. So who's
absolutely."
the asshole? Because I don't even think genuinely don't think that that's even an AEW driven thing. I think that's firmly on the fans. Like
No doubt.
they've chosen a side, and they have to dig their feet in for that side now. Not to
I
say that we
guess
don't do that a little bit on our side, but I
yeah.
I would like to think that we don't do it to the delusional degree. So
And Ric
that
Flair is
one's on the
there
fans.
to go ahead and pay honor to Steve McMichael.
Oh, okay. That you know what?
He passed
People are
away
gonna.
April 23rd, so he's
Yeah,
there for the
it's a
taping
four
just
horsemen
to
thing.
go ahead. Yeah, just to go ahead, and AEW Collision will air the tribute this Saturday the 17th at 8 p.m. on TNT.
Okay, people people still won't like it, but you know what? Fair enough.
Yeah,
All
so
right,
they're honoring
switch
Mongo.
over.
That's cool.
Switch over to another one where we don't have to ask who the asshole is because it's
No.
the guy in the headline.
Mm.
Um, you should go ahead and hire me back in WWE. It's not like I'm Chris Benoit or anything.
Oh God.
Velveteen Dream can fuck off, or Patrick
Yeah.
Clark or whatever the fuck his name is, doing all this thing. Oh, I'm trying to start this grassroots thing of like anybody can be redeemed, but also like you guys condemned me without hearing my side. It's like, okay, So are you wanting to be redeemed for something which kind of requires a confession, not to get too biblical
Yeah,
on
some
you,
form of
or
atonement.
or are you saying you got fucked, which is clearly not the case because everybody saw the evidence. It was all over the internet.
Yeah. Maybe we didn't hear you out to defend yourself somewhat, but would it have mattered? No, not in that instance. You
No.
ruined your own career, and he had so. And you say this all the time, and you hear it all the time. Oh, they had so much promise. No, really, he had so much promise. He had so
Yeah.
many big names backing him on the main roster. You know, and then of course all the friction with Hulk Hogan at that point, and all the shit that happened, it really soared his name. He was doing very well for himself in NXT. He was a big, big
And
name in NXT at
it was
that
at the
time.
time it was the time where, like, again, kind of like the Flair thing. If like saying that you have a problem with Hulk Hogan is going to work in your favor in the 2025 era of cancel culture that we're in.
Absolutely.
And it goes back to our previous conversation, though. I'll never say that the guy was not 100% his character, like had the charisma for days. I didn't necessarily love all of his matches, but very specifically the story between him and Aleister Black over something so simple. Just say my name.
Yeah. He wouldn't say my name. You wouldn't, and then and
And then at
then
the end it was thing.
Velveteen.
But here, like what did he say to him? Like, enjoy your new notoriety,
Yeah.
Velveteen Dream. I will never say that the guy. It's kind of like the Benoit argument again, a little bit, where nobody's gonna defend Benoit the person, but I think you should be able to say that the guy was a fantastic wrestler.
Exactly.
I know that's a really hair splitting hill to die on, but
But like Benoit had a great career up until the very end
up
when
until
his
what happened,
demise.
yeah,
Exactly. So that's why it's
I've
such a
always said
muddied and difficult thing
I've
to
always
talk
made the
about.
I've always made the case for not making a case for Benoit, but I've always made the case of if you could, like, because he's never going in the Hall of Fame, rightfully
No,
so.
no.
But if you could induct somebody's career without inducting the person,
And that's
which
kind of
doesn't
what they're
really make
doing every now and again with these new matches, and I wonder if that's a way they
the
could do it
matches,
in the
yeah,
future, because
I
that
don't
match
think they'll
I
touch
doubt
that.
it, because they kept it off the list on Raw as well, the greatest Raw matches. But one of the greatest
Yeah,
matches ever is where Triple H tears his quad. They have that tag match with Benoit and
yeah.
Jericho against the two-man power trip.
And now they'll just talk about, hey, Triple H had a match and this happened,
Yeah, he tore his
which is
quad,
fair. Like, I
and
don't,
Jericho put him in the walls with the torn quad, and they don't bring
yeah.
up what Steve was fighting, you know?
And trust me, like, I get what I'm saying is going to rub some people the wrong way, and that is not my intention. I'm just trying to find a middle ground with some people who, like me, really enjoyed his career. My point being, Velveteen Dream, I'm not going to do what AEW fans do and say that the guy didn't have a cool career in NXT for the time that he was there. But I am going to say it doesn't matter because you were trying to be a fucking diddler.
Yeah, exactly. You got caught.
Like, and I'm not trying to like make light of the people that he
No, no
affected
one
either when I
is.
say that.
Absolutely
Like,
not. What other way do
but
you
this
put it?
whole
You got caught trying to record fellow, wrestlers in the bathroom. You got
well,
caught
that too, but I'm going more so with the young fans that
Oh, yeah,
sort of
absolutely,
came
but I'm saying,
forward
like,
with
all
like
of
he
it
showed
adds
me
up.
this,
Where
this,
there's
and this.
smoke,
Yeah,
there's fire, and it just kept adding up
exactly.
because of all the bullshit that this man did to his own career and his own namesake. And instead of standing back and being like, "Whoa, that's not what happened. Let me defend myself," because WWE brought him back and said that there was no issue in anything he did, if you recall. And we saw the
Mm.
evidence online. We saw him talking to younger fans, but WWE said, "Hey, there's smoke, no fire. We're going to let it play out." And that's when everything went ahead and hit, and that it just got worse
But
for
you know what it
him.
is as well, though, right? Is I don't want to say that there would be forgiveness for this because there shouldn't, right? But if there was, if he like threw himself on the mercy of the public or whatever, I would still say no, you don't get forgiveness, right? But the extra layer of this, and I'm sorry, there's an identity politics layer to it
Yes.
as well that I'm gonna sort of skim over. Where that's gonna bug me is like, 2025. Oh,
Yeah,
cancel. Look at how many people have been fucked out of a career for life for so much less.
exactly. And here's what I want to say to anybody being like, "Oh, well, Patrick, no. He fucked himself. He is the
Yep,
asshole." As where the
yep.
namesake of this pod comes from, he
Mm,
is the asshole because he had already been cleared by WWE. His name essentially was given a second chance, and he still managed
Mhm.
to upset enough people and cause enough problems. Like you said, there was no humility, there was no atonement, there was no, hey, you know what? I didn't do anything inappropriate, but I made a mistake by even talking to an underage fan online in such a way. I should know to be careful. I'll stick, to meeting them in the meet and greets where it's not out of the public eye.
Mhm.
Bam, it would have been done. Because I can give you a great example right now that you probably haven't even considered yet, but Zachary Wentz dealt with the ultimate canceling,
Yeah.
lost his job and
Yep.
everything complete for nothing. He did nothing wrong besides go out with a crazy chick that tried to ruin him. And he made a stupid joke that he sent to his girlfriend and didn't publish and post. And that,
Yep.
got him to
He
be
kind of did a
canceled as
Sammy
well.
Guevara a little bit
A little bit. He
in
he
with
fucked
the stupid
himself in a
joke.
way,
Yeah.
but he wasn't an asshole, and he certainly
Yeah.
wasn't a misogynist or a rapist or a child abuser, and it took a
Yeah.
lot for that to work its way through, but what was he? He was diligent, he was accountable, and he stayed true to what he said. No matter what, he held to his convictions. Mr. Clark didn't do that. He
No. And you know what it is?
repeatedly made problems.
And I'm trying not to stray too far out of the wrestling realm that we're in, but look at somebody like a Gina Carano.
Yes.
Now, Gina Carano's not everybody's cup of tea. I've only ever seen her in a couple of things. In this case, it doesn't matter. She lost a career over tweets.
Yeah. I was a huge fan of hers, one of her biggest when she was in MMA. I wanted to see her in the UFC. I wanted to see her
Johnny
in Ronda
Depp,
fight. Like, I loved her. He lost
Johnny
the biggest
Depp,
role of his life.
Johnny Depp almost lost his career based on abuse allegations from his abuser,
Yeah.
who to this day still has defenders and still has people saying, "Oh, he just got away with it."
Yep.
Look at the people.
The
I'm
court of public
sorry. Look
opinion
at the
is
amount of
is
people.
very,
And
very
I'm
hard to deal
sorry.
with.
I'm only going to say it once, and I'm going to siphon myself off from Jake in case he doesn't want to co-sign for this. If Velveteen Dream looked like you or looked like me, he wouldn't even be in this conversation right now.
Yeah, I don't think so. I honestly, I'll co-sign on that one. I think that people wouldn't be giving him the chance because they didn't give Zachary a second chance. They didn't give others a
No.
second chance. They had to fight for themselves. And I feel like it comes from a source of
Look
identity
at Matt
politics, like you
Riddle.
said, and race, and yeah.
Look at Matt Riddle. Like
He had a few backstage poor interactions, but he had a freak out in the airport,
when he
and
came, you because now that you
that
got
was
me
it.
thinking about it again, like what the short brief period of time where he was like they thought he was out, but then they brought him back in. Poor
Mhm.
Mafia line, I know. Um, But I'm just like, okay, some people lose it over nothing. What do we have to do to get rid of this app?
Yeah, exactly. What do we have to do to
Because
take him out?
even like, okay, we're not in it. We're not affected by what he did. We don't have to interact with him. We are the outraged public at large,
Yeah,
right?
granted.
Imagine while all this is going on and you got to share a locker room with that asshole.
Yeah. And
So
now,
this
never mind
this
anything
whole
else with
thing where
underage
like,
kids, just the fact of the recordings and stuff. Now you got to share a locker room.
yeah.
So now you're uncomfortable. The
Yep.
females are possibly uncomfortable. People can't
Mhm.
handle certain, like, it's not a great look.
And
And
I'm sorry,
that's what makes
wrestling,
me upset about Del Rio being hired, but I get it because
yeah.
people aren't understanding. WWE did not go out and hire Alberto Del Rio. They had to
You listen to
take
my
on
podcast. Hey.
exactly. I was going to say, like Spaz properly explained, and I'm reiterating, they had to procure all contracts that were part of AAA until those contracts are essentially no longer valid, null and void when the
Well,
time
and
is up, unless they
the thing
decide
that
to
he's
pay
got in
them
his
out.
back pocket, the thing that he's got in his back pocket as well, as I mentioned a couple of pods ago, is he's their champion right now. And
Yes.
yes, you can vacate a title, but people are already saying that WWE is going to ruin AAA. And if you want to throw some fuel on that fire, it's like, oh, they vacated the title. They're just making up a title as they go along now that they've bought it, and blah 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 blah. And all the jokes that we've made about, oh, make El Grande Americano the champion. If you're doing that from a vacant title, WWE's opening itself up to some legitimate criticism. I think they bring him
Yeah.
in to build a story, have one match, drop the title, and probably tell him to fuck off.
And it's possible. They might not
Mhm.
even have him really do anything past that. Like you said, he'll come in, defend the
And I mean,
title,
the other thing,
maybe he
and
loses, and that's it.
you want everybody to be comfortable, right? But especially with the rumors that Paige is coming back, just
Yeah,
no.
that's a real bad look. And
It's
knowing
well,
how
it's a bad
public
look,
the
and
abuse is.
yeah,
And it also
it's a
makes
bad
for a
look, and
bad
I'm not
locker room.
yeah, and I don't. I don't know Paige from anybody, and she doesn't know me from anybody. But I'm like looking past the PR of it. Like if
Mhm.
she's just coming back into WWE and she's met face to face with that, that's horrible for her.
Yeah. No one
It
wants
is.
to go near their attacker, their
And
abuser,
the other thing
their
that
whatever. You
WWE
know,
or
even if no matter even if people say, "Oh, she should be held at fault. She was equally abusive to him," and whatever the case may be. For
yeah,
both of them, it's not a good idea to be in the same locker room.
yeah. Well, I mean, but in that case though, if she was, and I had not heard that, but I mean, if that's a thing that's been thrown around, then cool. Then he
I
shouldn't
don't
want to
see
be there
much
anyway, right?
merit to it, but they were trying to say like she was
Yeah.
equally, nasty and abusive, and it didn't
Well, then
ever
I guess
seem
you.
like that.
So
But
so so you tell him, hey, then I would you would have every reason to not want to be here, right? Thank you
yep,
for the title. You can fuck off now. Like
exactly.
put it on somebody that we don't see a lot of on TV. Like have the like we know Angel and Birdo are gonna be part of Triple Mania. Like bring in somebody like even somebody like Joaquin Wild, who like out of nowhere, anybody with two hands has a fighting chance. Goes in there, decks Del Rio in 3 minutes, gets the belt off him. They tell him to fuck off. Velveteen Dream, him coming back, especially like we said,
What's
with
Johnny
everything
Nitro
that
Wrestling Mundo up to at these times? Maybe we could put the belt on him for a week.
he's in AEW.
Oh,
You wouldn't know it, but he is.
yeah, he's
But
still
like,
signed there,
think
but
about think about the fact that WWE. I mean, they're not always a family friendly product. Thankfully, they do push the edges a little bit more now. All ages show this guy at shows with kids
yeah,
after what he's been accused of and what he's been proved of. Never mind. Okay, first and foremost, health and safety and well-being and mental well-being of your staff, your other superstars, the people that have to share, a washroom and a locker room with you and whatever. And then
absolutely.
think about every single fucking kid you're putting in that audience in front of that guy. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that guy badly and
All right.
hardcorely.
It's
Like
not it's not even a question for this one. Velveteen Dream's the asshole. All right.
he
Something a
is,
little bit lighter.
as I would say on my series, he is indeed. He's absolutely 110% guilty.
All right. Something a lot lighter, but
There we
still
go.
worthy of scorn and criticism. Um, if you've been out of the loop for a while and you're losing your relevancy and you're not on TV and you're trying to make your way through podcasting and interviews and getting your name back in the media, what do? You bash somebody in WWE,
Of
right?
course.
And I'm not talking about AEW this time.
No.
So, but
Mm.
who's the people that you really wouldn't want to go after in WWE? Like sort of universally loved, right?
Yeah.
Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, I mean,
Rhea Ripley, she's definitely
Rhea
one that gets a lot
Ripley.
of, solid defense. Absolutely.
If
Anyone
you're
that has,
Jonathan Coachman,
yeah.
how the fuck do you go after Bailey and think that's going to go well for you?
And like you
This
said
is
with
one
the
of the few ones that I actually
podcasting,
have a reference for, right? Oh my God, you guys can't be serious. Why do we keep bringing up Bailey? That's the question. Bailey's done. She's washed up. She's boring. She's nothing.
even though
What does
she's
she
going to
bring to
be
the table?
possibly main eventing, the last woman standing match at Evolution 2 with Becky Lynch,
Yep,
she's
there we
washed
go.
up and she's
If
done.
you
And
dropped Bailey off the roster today, what would we lose? Nobody would notice. When I was in WWE for 13 years, there were certain people, and she'd be one of them, and you'd walk around backstage saying, why would she ever win the Royal Rumble? Or why is she doing this or that? To me, she's a very nice person, sure, but there's a lot of sweet people. She's never sold a ticket like ever in her career sold a ticket for any rivalry she's ever done.
wow. So apparently he never
I'm
saw
sorry.
NXT at
No, you
all?
gotta let me. You gotta let me go for a
Yeah,
second. You
go
gotta let me go
for
for a
it.
second. It's very, very rare that I will give credit to Sasha Banks,
Mm,
right? But I'm pretty damn sure people bought a ticket when they knew that the main event was Sasha Banks versus Bailey.
yes. And that
Donovan
sold that
Coachman
show.
can
It wasn't
fuck
Finn
off.
Balor, it wasn't Samoa Joe, it wasn't anybody. It was
And no dig
Bailey
on those
and
guys either, by
no.
the way.
But Sasha and Bailey earned it. They were the biggest names in both Brooklyn, the New York show, and the other takeover where they had the Iron Woman match. Both of them combined. It was
This was
for a
the
reason.
this was like the infant stage of what we now know as WWE slash NXT is not always totally female driven, but has the most kick ass women's division most kick-ass female wrestling in mainstream North American wrestling.
Yeah,
And it was
absolutely.
spearheaded in this case, along with Sasha. Fair enough. Okay, you guys listening to me, you guys can whatever, right? But it was her and Bayley because Sasha was a cunt. Not that hard to do. It's yourself turned up to 11. And Bayley was the babyface.
Yes.
Bayley was the one that everybody pointed to that was sick of the main roster that said, why can't John Cena do that?
Yes. She was realistic. She was down to earth. She was believable. You were able to get your basically your fandom behind her because of how great she was at that time. She was so captivating with young fans. You saw a movement with her. It was multifaceted with how great she was.
The Izzy stuff. And as I
Yeah.
say, like
Oh,
I'm gonna
absolutely.
keep bringing this back because it keeps popping up on socials and stuff like that.
While Izzy's,
Izzy,
working on herself
Izzy
now.
Izzy the Bayley super fan that went off to be a wrestler and whatever, and I think she did some like streaming stuff as well, like wrestling related, is
Yeah.
now a WWE ID contracted
Signed
person,
talent.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's a weird comparison, and I've made it before. Izzy is like the female Dominic Mysterio.
Absolutely.
We saw her when she was a kid. We saw Dom when, he was on the top of a ladder between Eddie and Ray, metaphorically speaking. It's fine.
Exactly. He
But
was the prize.
is there any more of a we literally knew you when you were a kid story when Izzy obviously is going to come through NXT and do some
Absolutely.
stuff? Even if it's one exhibition, like Bayley in a match with Becky at Evolution, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, out of the crowd, Izzy comes and bitch slaps Becky.
Yeah. Like, even
Like
though
something cool like that. You don't get a story like that if Bayley didn't have that kid the way she had that kid that night at TakeOver,
Oh, yeah.
however many years ago.
You watch, Izzy cry when she lost and cheer when she won. It was there. It was real. There was a real emotion
But like,
that kid felt.
here's the thing though. Like, but I go back to it, right? And it kind of surprised me because I know Coach has always been on the sarcastic side. I'll forgive a lot of that because
But that's
look
not
at me.
sarcasm. He's laying
No,
out.
but this is what I'm saying though.
Yeah.
Like how, but even I always go to like if somebody's being selfish and they're only doing something for themselves, right? I take myself out of like, oh my God, like, don't you see what you're doing to other people? I try to put myself in their mind. How does this benefit you, you selfish person?
Yeah.
How did he think this was going to go well for him?
I don't know. And you know what? Like you said, he's starting podcasting. He's getting his name out there, and he's got some I don't know if it's credible information, but relevant information. He's saying that The Rock and Cena are not done. He has it on good authority that they're going to go ahead and be facing each other before the year is up, and that the
So he's been
last
reading the dirt
match,
sheets.
right? But the last match, he's saying on good authority, he spoke to people directly. So now he's using his.
I don't believe him.
I don't either. But here I'm trying to hear him out. So he goes ahead and he
Yeah.
says that he's got all these things coming up, and it's all well and good and great, but there's no. I don't want to say credibility is the wrong word, but there's nothing to help prove his point. One, he's just going off of I have these sources. So he's in the wrestling news coming out, and he's saying, "Oh, The Rock is going to face John Cena at his last match in Boston at Saturday night's main event." Well, everybody had the Saturday night's main event story. Everybody knew that was going to be a thing. Everybody knew
But do you
that.
not like even
So
when
he's
Bailey's
not
being
really
booked
saying
badly?
anything that is unknown to the general populace as well.
He's
So
aggregating.
exactly. So he's trying to make himself seem more important than he actually is already by having insider knowledge when we could say that too. Oh, John and The Rock, obviously they gotta finish off at some point.
But do you get this feeling like he's got this like Revenge of the Nerds thing going on? Because in
Yes.
WWE, like a lot of the commentators and backstage people, he was put in a lot of embarrassing situations. He was the one during COVID in the empty building that had to respond to Austin and do the hell yeah like by himself. Like he was made to look like a dork in WWE a lot. And I don't imagine that that's fun unless you're completely up for it. But does it feel like now he's like, he was the dorky kid and now he's in his goth phase. He's going to be super edgy and piss everybody off. Like, is this, I hate to say it because I hate to say his name because I don't want him to appear. This is out of the JD handbook.
Yeah.
100%. But like, do you not see like the fandom that follows Bayley, but also the outrage that people have for Bayley from the time that she was in NXT, she was like, I say the thing with her and Sasha, my feelings on Sasha aside, theirs was an establishing feud in NXT, like in its
Yes.
early days, right? Everybody got called up
It
except
established the
Bayley.
women's division. It established what they could do down there. Yeah.
But everybody got called up to the main roster except Bayley. Remember when they did the 3 teams of 3 and
Yeah.
Stephanie McMahon
Team Bad
created
and
Team Bad and Team Bella and Team PCB and
what was
Stephanie
PCB's
McMahon.
name originally? It was some type of
Oh, it was the
porno
submission
name.
sorority.
Submission
Yeah.
sorority. That's what
And
it
then
was.
somebody looked it up and said that was a porn thing.
Yeah, it was a
But
porn
like
website.
no,
So
but the whole point of that was they
Well,
brought up
series.
Becky, they brought up Becky, they brought up Charlotte, and they brought up Sasha, and Bayley got left behind.
Yeah.
And people were furious about it.
Yeah.
And then you come into the modern times, and
Well, when they
deservingly
did call
so.
up Bayley too, they kind of fumbled it. Remember, because they had like that fake
Yeah.
call up where she came and she wrestled the one match. I think it was SummerSlam or some
Yeah,
summertime
yeah,
pay
yeah.
per view, and then she didn't actually get called up. She went back, and everyone's like,
Right. But you bring it into like the main event scene now. Like she wasn't brought up from NXT with the rest. People were outraged when the glass ceiling was broken at WrestleMania. And I say glass ceiling legitimately because it was
Yeah,
way overdue.
main event.
When Becky and Charlotte and Ronda main evented, it was huge. Everybody was happy for Becky and all that. And then what was it, like years later, really a main event because it was night one.
Yeah.
Bianca Belair and Sasha also main evented, right?
Yes.
And all over again, people are saying this is just like the NXT call up. All the horsewomen have main evented WrestleMania except Bayley. What the fuck? Like that. I don't want to say it's not outrage at her, but that outrage for her
Yes.
has followed her since NXT.
It has.
So again, I say, Coach, how did you think this was going to go well for you?
And
I don't
not
think
only
we need
did
to ask.
the wrestling fans pick this up, but even Sports Illustrated
Well,
talks about this, saying Coachman explains why he thinks Bayley is washed up, but he's doing this on the back of Bayley losing her WrestleMania match. So the fans are very upset that she didn't get the payoff to all the hard work she's done for the whole year, and it was like Becky just kind of took her spot. So not only is the the fandom
See, and
up
that
in
was a booking
arms
like,
already, so he just
and see,
adds to a bad
that's where
opinion.
that's where the fury kind of got misdirected, because that's when we get into the whole Becky Hogan conversation, which is also bullshit.
It is,
by the way.
I agree.
Well, she came in and won a title. Yeah, she dropped it the next night. I mean, I know she won it at Mania. She lost it on Raw, but also it's Becky Lynch.
But it was all to further the story. They didn't have another way to turn her because the fans were cheering her, repeatedly.
And a couple weeks later, look what she's doing for Lyra now.
Yes. And
Lyra is, and I like Lyra. I've liked Lyra since NXT, but she did need to like find something. In the past 2 weeks,
she's found
different
herself.
Lyra Valkyria.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Now,
And
it absolutely sucks that it came at Bayley's expense.
I didn't think she was going to retain. I'm glad they went with that, and that shows to Becky's abilities even more so.
Absolutely. And I think Becky's slowly losing it as well. And saying, yeah, you think I'm this, you think I'm that. Cool. I am everything you say I am. If I wasn't, then why would I say I am? I'm too white to even do white rap. It's fine.
It's fine.
But it's very, very simple, this one. Coach is a dickhead. Coach is the asshole. It's fine.
And like you said with him, he's really trying to make his podcast be like the spot for wrestling news. Like, here we are. This is what. But it's just not coming across that way. It's
but
making him sound like a total.
It's like everybody
asshole.
now. But it's like everybody now that all of a sudden has come up with this idea. Well, if you really look at it logically, Undertaker was never really that good. First of all, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Second of all, every person that says it thinks they're the first person that said it.
No kidding.
It's just like,
But think about what he said here. He didn't say, I feel like she's not good or she's washed up. He said she's never drawn a dime. See, that's where the opinion became
nobody's ever bought a ticket to see a rivalry
Bayley.
She's ever done.
And that line speaks volumes as to his character.
But because what the shitty thing is, you know what's going to go under the radar with that as well. Nobody's ever bought a ticket for a feud that she was in. That's a shot at every person she's feuded with as well.
Exactly. Because it puts down her and everybody else. And
what
the
fuck?
That.
He's the asshole. It's fine. You know who else are assholes?
Who's that?
AEW.
Yeah. I couldn't tell.
Okay. This is a little bit of hearsay, a little bit of like one person's side of the story. So let's
Yeah.
be fair and say that this is coming from one person's side of the story. I will say to you, if you see a questionable storyline on WWE, take something wild and crazy like when Charlotte has a feud and Paige goes ahead and takes a dig at her dead brother.
Yeah.
It's terrible, it's horrible, it makes everybody go ooh and ah, but outside of being in the story, you want to hope what? Everybody was okay with it ahead of
Yeah, it was
time.
cleared, it
People
was
were asked,
checked.
questions were asked, consent in the loosest way I can say consent
Yeah.
was given. Hey, we want them to push the boundaries as long as, like Simon Miller says it all the time as well. Like the great thing about wrestling is any two people in a ring can do anything as long as both of them are okay with it.
Yeah,
Right? And
exactly.
I think that's a
That's a
pretty
great quote.
fair. Simon Miller
He needs
has
to be hired.
such
Goddamn. You
he do, he,
tweeted it
well
out
he
the other
does
day.
the promo that he cut. But I
Mhm.
mean, even if you hear him talk about wrestling, he's got such a more level-headed view on wrestling than even like I really do respect the fuck out of that guy. I'm glad I got to meet him last year at Destiny. Check it out, Spaz
Yeah.
Phoenix bucket list. It's fine. But the key phrase in there is two people in a wrestling ring can do anything that they want to do as long as both of them are okay with it.
Yeah.
Saraya, now that she has left AEW, has let us all know, and she doesn't really go into the detail of it, whatever. The details don't matter.
No.
One thing that she always said no to in AEW because it was brought to her several times is they wanted her because what's his name? The fellow that's with Ruby Riot now. Is that Cool Hand Ange?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
Anyways, when that was going on and they were partners and whatever, they wanted to continue the
With
girls group story there, and they
with the
wanted
partners,
Saraya.
yeah.
Yeah, they wanted Saraya to have a romance angle with Daddy Magic. Which, I mean,
Making
if
his
everybody
nipples
was on
hard,
board,
you know?
yeah, if everybody was on board, he's entertaining, she's entertaining. They're both kind of banter. Could have worked if everybody was involved, right? She told them, I'm not going to do a romance angle. I have a boyfriend. I think it's disrespectful. Boyfriend, partner, whatever you want,
But
whatever
it's also,
terminology
she
you want to
said it
use.
wasn't the story for like it wasn't there wasn't a reason in the story for her. You know what I mean? Like it was just something to throw in because she said had there
Yeah,
been like a super important reason, like, oh my God, I revealed that he was behind me the whole time because we've been together. Like it wasn't that. It was just
yeah.
they're together for team's
And
sake.
see, but see, here's the thing. Like she's uh well within her rights to give that extra bit of detail. I kind of don't think she has to.
She doesn't.
Like, I'm saying no because I'm saying no. And they came back to, oh, well, it's only going to be this, like downplaying it. Like, it's only going to be this. It's not really that bad. Think about it again. Like, it sounds like such a, because they didn't end up making her do it. Like, you can't force somebody to do that.
Mm.
But I
Vince
just,
found
for her,
ways, but
I mean, well, Vince wasn't perfect either. It's fine.
no.
The godfather of professional wrestling was not perfect.
No.
Anyways, moving swiftly on. I just think it's kind of gross, like to the point of like, when was the last time she was on AEW programming? Like, probably more than a year ago, other than
Yeah.
All In London.
She has not
Um,
even wrestled, I think, in over a year's
so
time at
it's
this
been
point.
that long, and she's parted ways with AEW now, and the fact that it's still like a, I don't even think she's ranting on them, really. Like she was just telling the story, but I'm just like, all right, you're done with WWE. WWE have said they're not going to clear you to wrestle. You still want to wrestle on a big stage, so you kind of got to be looking at it as it's AEW or nothing if you want to be on that size of a stage.
Yeah.
So the only option you have is saying, well, we want you to do this, we want you to do this. Like, hey, screw like being a wrestler and coming out here and wrestling. We want you to do this. Like, say no, and if they take the idea and rework it and want to present you with an entirely different reworked idea,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's not
you're
just
still,
downplaying the same
yeah,
thing.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
still being kind of pushy, but like at least you've tried to come to a middle.
Exactly.
But
You've
just
had an
like to
agreement
have that
and
immediate response of, oh, but it's just this, it's just this. If she's, and I mean, it's not for everybody. Like,
no.
there's lots of people that have like, look at the Dominic Mysterio thing when everybody said, oh, WWE is bullying Dominic Mysterio's wife
Yeah.
because he was stuck between Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Clearly, everybody's cool with it. They all know each other. He's such a good heel. He got booed at his own wedding.
Yes, and
Like
on top of
everybody was
it,
having fun.
you nailed it too,
Yeah.
though. They were okay with it, and they made it
Mm.
work. And if you look at the type of relationship that they've had, him and
Oh
Liv
yeah.
only had that one actual, like, moment of intimacy.
Yeah.
Besides that, they'll do, like, bunny kisses where she'll rub her nose on him or something,
And
but there's no
supposedly,
real affection, and his wife has been his childhood sweetheart. They were together in
yeah.
high school, married each other, still together, and then,
Yeah.
we've got
It's
all
like
this
that
stuff,
kind the
so
kind of shit you should be happy for. But
yes.
also like supposedly because the other side of the coin is, oh, Buddy Murphy's over there in AEW. Girl gets slapped up or snapped up into, Dom's arms or whatever. And I'm like, first of all, if he did anything, like she would throw him into the fifth row.
Yeah.
And second of all, the really cool thing about it is supposedly Buddy Murphy and Dominic Mysterio were like really tight buddies,
But you saw
which
the
is kind of
respect
cool. Yeah.
continue throughout, like, it never faltered or faded. The
Yeah.
respect was always there, and that's what I'm saying, like, AEW, they might have had, some
Yeah.
idea with this storyline, but she wasn't comfortable with it, and like you said,
Yeah.
it
I
was
don't
put
and
forth
like let me be
many
clear, like
times.
I think AEW are the dicks here for like just being a little too persistent with it. I'm not accusing WWE or sorry, AEW of doing like a Katie Vick thing or some
No.
like over the top really gross thing. But on the other side of that coin, you keep going back to something that's been said no to, and that's gross enough. What's happening behind the scenes in this case is probably way more upsetting than whatever would have ended up on screen, but
S
it's still
so what
bad.
what I'm
And
more
in
upset
in
about
some
is the
ways that's
fact that she
worse.
was held off TV because she refused this storyline, it seems like, because she hasn't been used, and people are
Yeah.
putting those 2 and 2 together, and it's like, "Oh, well, she said no to their idea, and then they didn't come up with anything else for her, and she got sidelined." And how do you argue in that when the facts speak for itself? She wasn't injured, she wasn't like, she's been waiting to wrestle, waiting to come back, and they've had quite a few females waiting for their return to happen, and it's like, we've seen this, and they stick with the same few. We only get one female match a show, if that, and then it's only a few
Mhm,
minutes, and it usually only
mhm,
involves Tony Storm. So
mhm.
it leaves a lot to be desired when you
Oh,
have
haven't you
people
heard
that are
the next
ready. Look at Sammy. Look at
Mhm,
Sammy's wife, Conti. There, take Conti.
mhm.
She hasn't wrestled in forever, and she's like, "I'm cleared, I'm trained. We have the kid, but I'm post that. I'm good to go. Yeah, I was pregnant, but I'm not still. So let's do this."
She's getting shit on now because she hasn't spoken out against the joke that Sammy made about Mercedes
Yeah,
how many years ago?
exactly, because she
Like
knew what her husband
it's
meant.
really going down the pipe at this point.
Yeah, and if
But
you look at the way he was a young kid, and then I spoke that way. Everybody spoke that way when they were young, and it was
yeah.
popular at the time. And, "Oh, I do this, I do," but he wasn't being serious ever, and I feel like that got
Oh.
overlooked. Was it a bad thing to say?
Well,
Certainly in bad taste. Yes, I
oh yeah.
agree entirely, but it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Well, as
This
Undertaker would tell, or as Hogan would tell you, rather, just don't get caught.
just don't get caught. That's right. He's more upset that,
Uh,
someone recorded him than what he said. So again, talking
yeah.
about accountability and, atoning for your actions. He thinks the wrestling world only booed him on Raw and whatnot at the Netflix premiere because, it's all work, and they're thinking of him being a heel when he was like, "No, people don't like you because you're a terrible liar and a shitty person."
And now he's got his own shoot fighting company.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
we
to
don't need to.
because that
You
makes
know what's
sense.
you know what's fucked up? Everybody that hates him is gonna give the first episode of whatever that is the best ratings it'll ever have,
Oh, absolutely, because the hate
just on the
watch
first
counts.
episode. Well, because everybody's gonna want to cover it. Oh my god, did you see how terrible this is? And then tribute to the huge ratings that are gonna get him a TV deal, and then you're gonna cry about him getting a TV deal when it's your. Anyways, all
And
right,
that's when it
let's talk
kicks
about
in.
something a bit lighter. And this is more of a my opinion thing than anything else. Um, John Cena, fan threw a bottle at him.
Yeah.
First of all, don't do it. This is
No.
another one of those. This is another one of those. There's not really a question. The guy's a dick, unless there is a very mild rumor floating around that the guy was a plant. I don't know why it would be a plant. If
Just to
we find
drum
out
up some
If it was a plant, it's kind of hilariously a non-issue, non-story at that point.
Yeah.
But assuming it's real, the guy's a dick. Don't do it. Like, obviously, we have those conversations all the time. Like, don't grab the fans, don't be weird to the chicks, but don't chuck stuff in the ring.
No.
It's not. It's not Hogan joining the NWA era as
Certainly
fun as
not.
some of that chaos is, and like, don't want to say it's not the time because it's never the time, but like, don't be a dick, don't put the wrestlers in danger, all that kind of thing. Here's the
Exactly.
larger thing, and I mean the larger thing is, okay, you chuck a bottle at somebody, it's assault, you should be arrested.
Yeah.
But in the storyline, did that guy put a ding in John Cena's heel character?
No.
Because no. Here's my
Okay.
thing for you. Here's my thing for you. And I don't think it did. It's a rhetorical
No, but
question.
still.
But I'm just saying, what is the number one sort of, other than like actually physically doing bad things, what is the number one criteria of a true heel?
What, getting the audience to react,
They
with
lie.
vitriol and heat? Oh, absolutely, that
They
too.
lie,
Yes.
right? John Cena turned heel on the fans because the fans are terrible, and he's coming out and lying week after week after week as if the fans were never behind him. It's an abusive relationship, whatever, whatever. In that one moment, you took the lie away from John Cena
Yeah,
because it's been spoken about. Because he didn't ignore it, he picked up the bottle and went along and said, "Yeah, this is the kind of thing that I expect." Right in the middle.
exactly.
First of all, he's a great promo. He took it, he ran with it, he kept going. So credit to him for that. Obviously, glad that he didn't get hurt. But that guy, in addition to the fact that he should have been removed, he's committed assault, he's a dickhead, don't do it. But you've now made what John Cena said true. So if he's telling the truth, from a fictional point of view, if you say, hey, all these fans turned on me, all these fans are so toxic to me, and then the fans are actually toxic to him, it does a weird thing to his character arc. And I'm saying over the space of like 5 seconds.
Yeah,
It happened and it was gone. But in a couple of seconds there, it's like he could throw that in a promo next week, and he is telling the truth.
yeah,
And somebody brings the old banner from the ECW show, if John Cena wins, we riot. He says, "Go ahead and riot. I've still got the belt," right? But he's reacting to something that the fans are actually doing rather than lying and telling us how bad the fans are.
yeah,
So it had the possibility, if John Cena didn't roll with the punches like he did, to, I'm going to tell you how bad the fans are, and the fans are going to prove me right. So how am I really a bad guy? They could skew the dynamic, or that one moment could have skewed the dynamic,
yeah,
and that's minor compared to, like, hey, potentially criminal activity, criminal assault, whatever. But I thought, like, the whole thing here is John Cena hates the fans for how bad he thinks they are. If you're a fan and you're actually being bad and proving him right, it kind of fucks up the
yeah,
heel character, the heel run that he's on. And I
exactly.
don't like
And
that. That's not what I should be thinking about. But it's like, yeah, maybe John Cena's right,
but
but I
that's
don't
a
want to be
great
thinking
point.
that.
It really is a great point. You're like, it shouldn't be that, he's right, but look at how the fans are acting and reacting, and
Hmm?
they're proving him right. So,
And it's, and like, I do say this in such a way of, when the heel turn first happened, I said the each and every one of you cliche is tired and bored and played out for every time anybody turns heel.
yes.
If there's a single person that deserves to do the each and every one of you promo when he turns heel, it is John Cena.
Yeah.
So
He's
that
the
part
only
of it is
one.
cool. But then, like, in the fiction, you can say, well, if that's what you're reacting to, how come you didn't turn heel 10 years ago? But now you've given him a 2025 reason to say fans are shit, and he's right. It kind of fucks the dynamic. And I was like, I shouldn't be thinking about the dynamic of a fictional character when an actual person just had a bottle thrown at them. But
Yeah. But
this is the world we live in.
you're not wrong,
Um,
though, honestly, and
but
it
that,
does come down to
John
it.
Cena, fictional asshole. That dude in the crowd, provided for the 1% chance that he may be a plant, he's the actual asshole.
Yes, I agree
All
there.
right. Okay.
That's a great point, though, because like you said, he's proving John Cena right, and that's not something I had considered yet. The fact that he's making the heel actually be
Correct.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, he's putting strings in his bow or whatever. Okay, switching gears again. This is not directed at AEW. It is directed at somebody that works for AEW.
Mm.
That maybe needs to put the Twitter down. Just put the X down a minute. Just put the X down a minute, or throw your phone at the floor and watch it ricochet back up.
Oh.
Right. Ricochet, Javon Evans. Fun for the whole family, right?
Yeah.
Both of them were dicks. Both of them said stupid shit. Maybe not the best idea to call Tony Khan a crackhead,
No.
but
Granted.
like, if it wasn't common parlance for Tony Khan in the Twitter sphere anyway, I don't think it would have been that
It wouldn't have
way.
been his go-to insult. Certainly not.
But Ricochet commenting on a developmental talent saying, why don't I just come over there and squash you? Like,
Yeah.
we're all adults, but aren't you supposed to be the vet, the guy that made it to his big, 3,000 seater arena stage?
And you would think, like, aren't you
Going after
supposed to
the
be?
attendance of the developmental brand
And all he
when
said was
TNA is
too.
scraping at your heels?
Yeah, and then we had, another fan go after Lexus King, and they pulled out the bullshit of, well, hey,
If it wasn't for AEW, WWE never would have picked you up.
that
Like,
was
really?
one of them. But another one was he was all Lexus was doing was putting over Evolve, saying that's what he's going to watch. And another
Mm.
fan tweeted him and said, "Well, who's going to watch the developmental's developmental?" And
But
he's
did you see
like,
his response to that? He's like, "Oh, I'll just
"Yes."
tune in on Wednesday and watch the developmental."
And that line was great. He didn't call them an asshole. He didn't go
No.
ahead and belittle the fan. He didn't make fun of anybody at AEW. He just said, "Look, they're prepping talent for NXT," and he's not wrong. You look at
Mhm.
the Tony Fumble Rumble that we got at this point; it just keeps
Mhm.
growing and growing.
But it's like, I said this at the beginning of AEW, right? And this is sort of a broad statement, right? But like, every time I think of anybody at AEW, and it's a conversation to have, it makes for big, loaded, stacked weekends and whatever. The conversation about counter programming, and it's only an affront to you if you think you own the day and you don't.
Yeah,
But any time I think about that, I think about, because nobody knew what at the time that AEW was starting, right? Follow me on my conspiracy theory trail for a second, right?
I'm with you.
Nobody knew at the time that NXT was moving to regular television. NXT started off on the network.
Yeah. And no one
And when
thought
you
that they were going to be like counter programming one another. AEW was supposed to go up against WWE essentially. That was supposed to be the
but
goal of
but
it.
here's the thing though, right? We're talking about a time where the main roster was not getting any flowers, rightfully so. NXT was the new exciting thing, and main roster was kind of coasting a little, right?
Yeah.
They were trying to get the WWE network off the ground. And if you talk to most people, it was in that weird time before AEW where people treated NXT like it was a separate thing so that they could enjoy it and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
NXT, for the majority of the beginning of the WWE network, was the most popular thing on the WWE network because it was the only thing that we were watching live other than pay-per-view,
Yeah.
right? So in the beginning days of the WWE network, not knowing that NXT was going to go to regular television, you counter-programmed their infantile streaming service on the day that the most popular thing was playing. So you were counter-programming them every week. And then the
Then,
very first thing, before Evolve became a WWE brand, and they were sort of like a feeder system, right? One time, WWE said, "Hey, Evolve, we know you've got a show this weekend. Why don't we throw it on the network, get you some traction, whatever."
yeah.
And Cody Rhodes, who was still in AEW at the time, went and cut a promo in the middle of the, or maybe it was at the end of the pay-per-view. It was like, "You can't counter program this." They were given some airtime to some people that were respectfully performing in a gym.
Yeah.
If you're worried about that, then how do you say, we're going to make a show and we're just going to happen to drop it on Wednesday? We're just going to happen to drop it on the day that your flagship show of your brand new streaming service is running. And then when they went to regular TV, it's like, oh, WWE's counter programming. No, WWE's there first.
Yeah, they were there first. They had this set
But
and
here's the
ready to
thing.
go.
Here's the thing, right? These days, AEW has ROH, and we can pretend that they're a separate company. They're not, right?
Exactly.
I don't think, like, I don't believe in the punching up, punching down mentality most of the time, because I think if somebody's done something that makes you want to say something, you say it, right?
Yes.
I don't bother talking about ROH because, as nicely as I can say it, it's a non-factor. It's a very small thing that kind of exists over here in the corner. And I would never say, well, let's compare ROH's episode last week. Like, let's compare their attendance to Monday Night Raw. Because I'd
Yeah.
be a dickhead if
Exactly.
I
Because
did that.
and it doesn't line up properly.
But you're going to say, well, let's take Dynamite, which is their Monday Night Raw, and compare it to NXT.
Exactly.
Because you decided to take a swipe at a young kid and you're so upset that he actually swiped back.
You nailed that one, and I I
Like,
I
it's
fail
like
to
we had
understand the thought process at times with this.
we had the conversation yesterday about Will Ospreay and some of his comments recently about, oh, you know, I think AEW clears WWE in all these ways and all those ways. And I've come around even more to it now. I don't mind the way Will Ospreay goes about his thing, because at the end of the day, all he's really doing is puffing out his chest and wearing his team's jersey.
Yeah, which
And,
is
and
fine.
I made the comparison yesterday as well, like in the early days of AEW, and it was mostly directed right at Kenny Omega. But look at Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins was kind of making a dick out of himself, like
Yeah, for a
some
long
people could say.
time.
But he was flying the WWE jersey, and I'm like, okay, you're fighting for your team type thing.
And we
It's
even
a
gave
little.
him criticism back then for how he was presenting himself and
I
others.
didn't. I didn't criticize him. I was a little
I
bit
was
more gung
critical
ho.
because
It's
it
like
made him
take a
look
swipe.
bad.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
wasn't a great look for Rollins at a time where he could have been viewed as the it
yeah.
guy. That was
At
my
the
worry.
time where AEW was just starting, and those famous words, oh, he could have been considered as he was down,
Yeah.
because these guys were just starting and we didn't know what it was going to. But I look back on it now, and compared to some of the stuff we've seen now on both sides, it was just Rollins wearing his jersey, and I think Ospreay's doing the same thing. Ricochet is doing this thing of like,
It's supposed to be a
my,
character, but
my my main job is Twitter, and sometimes I take a break from Twitter to wrestle.
yeah. I mean, he's living on there. He's vanity searching his name incessantly because every time you see him basically get involved in conversations where he has not been tagged, he has not been included, mentioned, like they're not even in any way, shape, or form talking about him.
Yep.
And
But I just
it's
think, like, it was so out of pocket to be like, Javon posted some random thing about like that week's episode of NXT. He's like,
yeah,
and or so no, somebody had posted a compliment about Javon. Oh, it was somebody's going to correct me in the comment section below if I'm wrong, but I think it was somebody talking about all the evasions that Javon did in that battle royal,
yes,
where he was basically Rubber Man.
he just kept getting out of
and
there.
and Ricochet just has to come and quote treat it. It's like, he's a young kid picking up a bit of steam in the developmental brand, and that's what it is. People, fuck off. Why don't I just go down there and squash him?
Yeah.
It's like,
Because he said, "I
there
bet
was a,
your boss would let you squash me if that was the case." And he's like, "Yep, I'd go down there
which
and
is
I'd
such a
squash you."
stupid thing to say, because your boss is gonna have you do whatever the booking says.
Yeah.
Like, it's still real to me, damn it. What? Um, but like, there's an old line that is attributed to, I think it was Scott Hall, and I want to be respectful because obviously Scott Hall has passed away. But it's the whole, you meet a new person, you see what their finisher is, and he says, "Oh, that's a great finisher. I can't wait to kick out of it."
Yeah.
That's basically what Ricochet did to Javon.
Yeah.
And I don't
And
need to sit here and wave a flag for Javon. Javon,
he's
I
able to hold his own, absolutely.
yeah,
But then again,
but it's one
too,
of
it's
those.
like,
But again, it was one of those like firefight thing on it was one of those firefight things on Twitter where it was like, oh, okay, they're both being dicks. Okay, let's get the guns out, let's play, right?
yeah.
But the, oh my God, look at this disrespectful young man, shooting. He's just being a good old company bootlick, whatever. And I'm like, they're both doing it.
They're both doing the
I,
exact same thing. So why
I
is it they
wouldn't,
can
I
only
wouldn't,
call out the one?
I wouldn't even mind Ricochet doing it. I mean, he's a dickhead, but like, if they're both gonna do it, like, you know, two shooters, 5 paces and shoot, not Bandito and Chris Jericho,
No.
but like 5 paces and shoot. You want to play that out over cool. Let people think what they're going to think about you. But it's this constant, oh, we're coming for WWE. We're coming for WWE. Oh my God, they swatted back.
Yeah, how dare they reiterate and say anything that, dare be
It's
against
true.
AEW while they're going ahead and lambasting us incessantly. And see, that's what I get upset over. And that's why when I say
And then
you're my
people rush
asshole,
to
it's rightfully so.
the defense of Tony Khan. And this is me. You and I have had this conversation offline. I don't fall into that. I'm going to hate somebody just because they've got more money than me.
Yeah, no.
But Tony Khan's got a lot of money. He doesn't need defense.
No, he doesn't need the defense, and he doesn't really
Neither does
need
Vince,
any of
neither
the
does Triple
bullshit.
H, neither does Shawn Michaels, neither does whoever else you want to mention, neither does John Cena, neither does The Rock, neither does whoever, but neither does Tony Khan, and neither do the fucking Bucks.
Yeah, you nailed
So
that.
who's the dick in this one? Kind of everybody, but
Because
also the...
Javon, didn't respond the best, like we said. He could have gone ahead and shut up
Oh, he
and
let it
not
fly,
called
and
his
then he
boss a crackhead.
yeah, and then he pulled his down because I'm pretty sure WWE's PR team was like, okay, we got to stop, we got to let them breathe a
Yeah, this
little.
is not great. Gotta
It,
let
it
up.
is one of those, like, but I'm not going to say Ricochet is completely a dick here, although he did start it. I'm not going to say Javon's a dick because he responded to somebody else being a dick. I am going to I am going to say it's X/Twitter/dirt sheets in general.
But Ricochet has
Because
been an asshole to the point that it's a problem.
yeah,
But under the guise of, oh, I'm only doing this because it's a character work. It's for
mm.
the heel turn. It's for
See, people never let Triple H get away with that in that
no,
infamous feud that he had with Booker T. He's just being a heel. That would have never flown.
no,
But again,
and it
but again,
shouldn't fly.
I mean, Booker T and Triple H was an actual story.
It was, and it was a real feud.
Ricochet is not facing Javon Evans at Forbidden Open Door, Rotating Door, Mall Door gimmick pay-per-view.
Exactly.
AEW ain't getting the rub. It's fine. And right now, WWE, ironically enough, is giving the rub to literally anybody else, which is
Literally
fantastic.
anybody
Okay,
that comes up to them, they're like, hey, guess what? We're going to include you.
talking about the dirt sheets,
Yes.
right?
And how they've been
I
getting less
have
and less information fed to them.
no. Because I have a really, really, really good impression that I use of a certain guy in your neck
Ooh,
of the woods
yeah.
that I have. I pull out the impression every now and then. We're gonna build a drywall. It's gonna be
It's
fantastic.
great. Don't
But
worry
I
about
have
it.
never been able to say in the wrestling context, I would like to tell you about some fake news.
Ooh.
Horrible news. The worst. You can't imagine this fake news. CM Punk is a hypocrite and now he's promoting Saudi Arabia
Mm.
because the ad for the next pay-per-view, which I think is Night of Champions in Saudi
Yes.
Arabia,
Past
there's
Money in the
no
Bank, yeah.
there's nothing announced for this card yet.
No.
And when there's nothing announced for a card, what does the ad consist of?
One or
Random
two big
shots,
stars, yeah.
random shots of random wrestlers and the logo and the date.
Yes.
Now, the last time I checked, CM Punk definitely doesn't work for PR, and he doesn't work for the advertising department. He doesn't
No.
work for the video editing department. And the fact that he is shown for 5 fucking seconds in a random scatter shot of a bunch of different wrestlers that happen to work for WWE on a Saudi Arabia pay-per-view ad has now turned into, oh, when he was in AEW, he was all against Saudi Arabia. He told them to suck a blood-sucking dick and whatever, blah blah blah, and now he's going for the big green, the big mamu, and
But did he go to
he's
Crown
never
Jewel? No, he stayed away.
he's
He
never
had
had
Hell in a Cell,
any morals.
and then
He's
he
never
left
had
after
any
Hell in a
morals.
Cell. He took time off, so he didn't have to go to Saudi, and we knew that, and we knew
But
why.
it's not even
It's not even booked, scheduled.
It's
Exactly. It's just
it's
an
an
ad.
ad. It is the most generic. Here's a bunch of wrestlers because what we're really showing you is the logo and the date.
Yes.
Big surprise, WWE still has their deal with Saudi Arabia. Now,
Which we
want to be
knew is
clear?
not going away. It makes them a ton of money. It actually
I want
saved the company record times because of, the issues they had in 2018, 19, all
yeah,
that with booking and whatnot. Those Saudi
I
deals
want to
kept them
yeah,
going. So
I want to be clear, as I always am when we get onto the Saudi thing. Anybody out there is free to think whatever they think about the Saudi deal. I know it's a multi-layered issue, topic of discussion, whatever.
yeah,
I'm open to all avenues of conversation for all sides about what you think about WWE being there, what you think of the shows, what you think it means politically, socially, all those types of things.
yeah.
Any opinion is valid. I mean, don't be an idiot.
Yeah,
But
but
like any,
WWE has pretty much made sure that these Saudi shows really in a vacuum don't matter. They're just there
it's
to
true.
be
I
there.
mean, well,
Crown
it's gonna
jewel and
it's
champion
gonna it's
versus
gonna matter
champion.
next year. It's gonna
Next year
matter
with the
next year.
Rumble, it'll matter, yes. But I'm
Yeah,
saying these
I
side
think
shows
Sammy's winning it,
have
but
not could be, and that's gonna be a
mm,
fun one to predict. But, we've seen, all these different ways and angles and the way things have taken shape, but for the most part, they've kept these Saudi shows to pretty much be just the B-side show. You're gonna get what you get, and then that's it. And it's worked for them, it's been like a bizarre world of sorts. Like, yeah, you watch WWE Weekly, but this is a extra for those that wanna see more kinda idea in a sense.
yeah.
I
And I
never
mean,
faulted the wrestlers for being involved with it for
no,
something the
exactly.
company did, and people were like, "Oh, they all should have taken a stand like Brian or Sammy," or well, Sammy's even been there now, It's like it's happened. The women wrestle.
But you know what it is? Okay, here's the one thing I will say though, right? Is there's no way for me to say this the right way. A lot of bad stuff happens in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
There's a lot of weight there. But let me tell you something, man. A lot of shitty stuff happens everywhere
Yes. A lot of bad
at the
things
same
happen
time.
here too,
Not
and
not
it
putting anything down, but it's like, okay, I'll pick a stupid example, like the Boston Marathon
yeah,
bombing, right? Was a terrible, horrible thing, and whatever the case may be. I don't want to be associated with Boston, so I'm not going to go to any shows in the TD Garden.
yeah.
People would look at you and roll your eyes and be like, "Okay, see you next."
Yeah, what happened to Boston
And other
Strong,
people,
right?
yeah, but other people would turn around and say, "Okay, I understand that guy's point of view. I respect that guy's point of view. I respect him not wanting to be part of this show. Caveat, him not being on the show opens up a spot. If I see an opportunity, I'm taking it."
Yeah, and I get that too.
Yep. Um, I just think it's I want like I say, I want to be clear, like the shows have a thing. There's people for whom that it meant a lot. Like Mansoor was obviously hometown boy. Like they gave him
Yeah,
some cool moments there. Sami Zayn finally being able to participate in one and doing like the video vlog things of like what it meant to him to be there. That's a different perspective on the
yeah,
whole
and
thing.
that's gonna
Kevin Owens who didn't go because his friend wasn't going, and there's that as well. If you went anyway, I respect you. If you decided not to go because it's against your
beliefs or whatever, yeah,
whatever elements that you're against, I'm cool with that as well. But again, it
absolutely.
goes back to what we were talking about with the page thing. Like
But you don't have the if you don't
any
go, that's fine, but you don't have the right to shit on anybody else that does,
oh,
and it doesn't mean that
exactly.
they agree with the murder of Khashoggi or they agree with,
Oh,
taking away
exactly.
women's rights.
Well,
Or
yeah,
they're
that's
going
a
there to entertain families, and that's what it comes down to, and that's what I've
but
always
they're
been able to
also
accept it as. Seeing the kids get that moment of entertainment, getting to see their stars, larger than life
but there's
things.
probably a lot of people there as well that have like that really really basic work mentality of I work for WWE. This is where WWE is this week.
Yeah,
And you can have that simple a mentality around it, and if you don't, then cool. But the fact that people are zoning in specifically on Punk
yeah,
because he made the off comment, I think it was to MJF, like, oh, if you think it's so bad here, why don't you go suck a blood money cock
yeah,
in Saudi Arabia with the
something
other
like that.
guys? And it's
Yeah.
like,
But he
all right,
still
cool.
stands very vocally against Saudi and the agreement, and he hasn't said anything to go against it. That's what I'm saying. I can see if people were upset, like, "Oh, he's now the main event there, and he's telling everybody they have to watch
Yeah.
it," But that's not
Mhm.
what's going on.
Mhm. And also, like, it's very easy on the outside to wanna look like the nice guy and say, "Oh, I can't believe anybody goes," but now you're in it, and you get a different perspective again. But again, if that happens, that's the conversation we'll have.
Yes.
He's not signed for the show.
No.
He's in 5 seconds of an ad that was scattershot because nothing's been announced. And very clearly,
And that's all
they
that's been
have
announced is that
very
they're
clearly
going
they
to
have
have a
2
show.
enemies. They have 2 enemies. One is WWE and one is CM Punk.
Yeah.
And of all the people in that video, to handpick him out of that, who was working over in the woke company, and the really cool woke thing is to speak out against WWE and against the Saudi show. At the end of the day, it was a promo as well. At the end of the day, the character CM Punk said that to the character MJF.
Yeah.
So even if you want to say he's a hypocrite, then you're saying his character is a hypocrite. And his character isn't 100% baby anyway. So fuck
Exactly.
off.
You nailed
But
that.
you're clearly just like threads. Like, you know, you're on your last string, they're on the last thread of a string. And I'm sorry, and I'm calling out What Culture on this, and you know, pretty sure I know who wrote the headline. CM Punk criticizes Saudi shows and now he's advertising them. He's not.
He's not advertising at all, Sedge. You know, it's like,
It wasn't Sidge, it was Andy Murray, it was the other one.
oh,
It was the taller, balder Sidgwick. And I
was
hate
the
saying that
other.
because the other guy on the news is Adam Wilborn, who tries to have a little bit of nuance on the whole thing. God
Yeah,
forbid.
tries to
But
be
like, but even still,
in the
like,
center of the two.
it's just like, just say you're sucking Tony Khan's cock.
Yeah, just be honest.
Just
at that
say
point.
it. Because isn't he tied to the soccer team that's sponsored by the Saudi Sports Authority?
Yes.
And his dad? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
so,
rules for thee and not for me. Fuck off. Who's bad in this case?
whatever with
Twitter,
Fulham,
X,
yeah, their
the social
football
media,
club.
the dirt sheets, and wrestling's fake news. Fake news, so terrible. So terrible. You wouldn't believe it. I would never say that. That's what they tell me. It's fine.
It's void.
It's not fine. All right.
But we pointed out who's the asshole and who's not. But with you know, like you said, there's always going to be nuance. There's always going to be certain parameters to view things as, and people don't often consider that. They don't look to the facts. They strictly follow opinion, and we've seen how that has played out for many. And I feel like every step we take forward with the internet wrestling community, we end up taking a few steps back lately.
That's
It's
why we're not
just-
in the IWC. We're in the WFU,
That's right. Standing
a
united, my friend.
Wrestling for Life network fans. If you know, you know. But yeah, it's just like I could understand somebody like mildly like misreporting. So, hey, over the course of X pay-per-view, we got a ad for the Saudi show. The ad seems to feature X person, Y person, Z person.
Yeah.
That's reality.
No reporting
That
that they'll be there, but they are featured on the advertising.
yeah.
Which,
All you
as
could
we
say
know
is,
before, I mean, they used to have Lesnar on a bunch of the posters, and he wasn't even
yeah,
around at that point. You know, it's
hey,
like
we used to have Lesnar.
that
Let's
too.
be real for a second.
Exactly. You know,
Hey,
and
cancel
we've seen
culture's not a
both.
thing, right?
No,
Cancel culture
certainly
is
not.
definitely not a thing. Um, let's go to something lighter. Well, kind of.
Kind of.
One of the coolest things in wrestling is when somebody we like or somebody that's just in our sphere steps outside of wrestling and finds success somewhere else. CM Punk in MMA, Jericho with Fozzy. You know, The Rock went to Hollywood. Cena followed in his footsteps. So, two wrestlers have TV shows now. Braun Strowman is going to be on some kind of like worldwide cooking show thing, and The Miz is going to be the new host of American Gladiator.
Which is great.
How can we possibly put a negative spin on this?
Well, let's see.
I shit you not. The take that I saw all over X the minute the thing was announced with I'm going to get to Strowman in a second because it's kind of layered, that one.
Yeah.
But Miz hosting American Gladiators, the number one take I saw everywhere was, we knew he wasn't really a wrestler. We knew he was going to go back to eventually. He was just taking a detour. Let me just say something to you for a second.
Right.
Go to Google and Google Miz WWE debut. The Miz debuted and had his first match in WWE on September 1st, 2006.
Yeah. He's been
So
there.
he's been on an 18-hour detour. He never really gave a shit about wrestling. He was just using this to get back to his reality TV roots. First of
Right.
all, I don't think American Gladiators counts as reality TV.
I don't think so either, but to them it does
Like,
apparently.
what the fuck is it? Like, I don't know
Mhm.
what it is. I'm not gonna watch it. It is what it is.
American
But
Gladiators
like,
was always interesting because it's essentially Ninja Warrior or any of those type of physical
yeah,
competitions where you just have big muscly men beat the shit out of you as well and
big
keep you
beefy men
from
slapping man meat.
keeping you from achieving your
Yeah,
goal.
Miz debuted in WWE May 31st, 2006, as the host of SmackDown. I actually remember that. Fedora Jones, and then had his first match September 1st, 2006.
Yeah,
Do you know how different WWE is now than fucking 2006?
right? And people
2006 is when Heyman was still booking the SmackDown 6, right?
exactly. And people just fail
Jeez.
to either see, understand, or accept that most times it feels like.
It's one of those like, I've been waiting 18 years to land a blow on the Miz. Yeah, you're a TV star. You're very successful and have had multiple television now you have another deal.
Yeah, you came
That'll
from
show
reality
you.
TV and now you're gonna be filming a blockbuster big show and be making a ton of money. How dare you?
It's it's bizarre. Okay, so the other one is got a few more layers to it. Braun Strowman included in the most recent releases. Post release, we found out all the seemingly terrible medical shit he's been going through. He's been wrestling in his last run with like a 35% feeling in one of his legs because of nerve stuff.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty fucking terrible. He's got a cooking show thing. Like, I think it's like literally as bad as this sounds. I think it's like Braun Strowman eats around the world or something that simple.
Yeah.
And so the number one deal, or sorry, the number one backlash we get from this is, oh, must be nice for somebody to have something else to lean back on. What about XYZ person that got released that doesn't have anything? And I'm just like, well, Indy Hartwell just signed with TNA,
TNA.
and
Yeah.
she's the House of Glory women's
Shotzi's working with
champion.
MLW,
Is she
and
really?
yeah, she's apparently
I
gonna
had not
have
heard that.
some some interest there. And then
Cora Jade's back in GCW, and she's coming to Destiny. Check it out for Spaz Phoenix Bucket. It's fine.
yeah.
Everybody's doing good.
I mean, Bea Priestley and
King,
Jamie Hayter used to kill it together in Stardom. So I mean, I could see being added there. But yeah, Elena Black, Cora Jade, she's already booked at a few different company. And like I said, Shotzi and
she's doing
MLW have been
like
talking.
a whole run at was it GCW, and then she's
Hmm.
coming up here to Destiny. They haven't announced it yet, but I'm really hoping it's her going after Aaliyah for our title, because if she picks up our title, then we'll have her around for a little bit.
Would be amazing,
Um,
right?
Speaking of most recent, not the most recent release, but like recent-ish releases, Dijak is our main champion right now. It's
Exactly,
fine,
and he's being
but
featured
like,
heavily as well too. Like these people, that's why I wanted to see AEW survive. I don't want to see them fail
yeah,
because I appreciate there being other companies, but the indies are back at a point where they're surviving in a way where it really doesn't need to be
yeah,
AEW anymore. There are we
and
saw
and
it even with the disaster of a Sabu match. I mean, Joey Janela Spring Breaking was one of the biggest events of the entire WrestleMania independent weekend, and that went over very well. So you
yeah,
can't
until
say
he
like these
passed,
things.
and all the shitty people on the internet decided to take somebody's passing once again and use it for an argument.
Yeah, they made that into Janela's fault. He must have poisoned him and forced him to wrestle.
Oh my
And
god!
again,
But
with
here's
the
the
asshole conversation.
so the other half of the Strowman conversation that I find interesting is he left with WWE with really good terms and a door open, and because of his medical uh condition, whatever. I didn't look into a ton about what he's dealing with medically, because I think that sort of grows to a gross level of stuff that we don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to know. But he's got medical stuff going on, and he's got like lack of feeling in one of his legs and stuff. So like a constant run probably wouldn't be good for him. Not that I want to tell him
No,
what to
but he's
do,
also another
but
one that definitely benefit from losing quite like 50 pounds. He doesn't need to have all that muscle on him.
oh
His
yeah.
knees are shot, that kind of thing. So I could
But
see
even
him
even with like
benefiting.
no feeling in his leg, look what he did for like
Bronson Reed
Bronson Reed and Jacob Fatu and a couple of other people. He's
yeah,
great as the, hey, you just pissed off the GM, now you got to face this guy.
yeah.
And this is
He's the new
what he apparently
Undertaker.
has now. He doesn't have a Legends deal. That's being misreported. But he has sort of like this handshake deal with WWE where if there's something that we can bring you in for like a spot or whatever, we'd like to keep that line of communication open.
Yeah, which is
And
great.
that's kind of cool for him because he'll have like a, or hey, Javon Evans has just come to the main roster and he's getting picked on by the Creeds and he needs to find a tag partner or something ridiculously low key like, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
again, it turns around to, oh well, you could have just done that for everybody. You think Braun Strowman is some kind of legend? It's like, no, individual scenarios
Yeah,
require individual handling,
exactly. And
and
he's certainly earned that right. I mean, he is a monster among men, but he's a very big guy, and there's a
yeah.
reason to it. So it's
Yeah, he probably and like I say, if he's got a show that's going to keep him busy full time, maybe all he needs to do is show up for one or two appearances, or like maybe even he shows up in the back for like a
yeah.
comedy spot or
But
something.
Braun's
Like,
also got himself to a point now where he can show up to a SummerSlam or something like that and be a decent
mm.
draw, and then you don't really need much else from him. That's
Like I
enough at
say,
that
somebody
point.
needs backup for a night, and
Yeah,
not saying that he necessarily won't do this just because he's doing a show, but like Braun Strowman's a guy that could show up at your indie and have everybody shit their pants for 5 minutes.
yeah,
Like Braun Strowman could walk into Destiny and he'd look bigger than the building. And that's
exactly.
not a dig at Destiny. Shout out to Destiny. Really looking forward to Summer Heat. It's going to be awesome.
And that was
But I
something they
mean,
didn't do with Shayna Baszler. That was something I was always upset with WWE because Vince was never one to care for women in MMA, and Rousey was
yeah.
just too popular for him to ignore. But anybody
Supposedly
in
that was
MMA, that was
one of the things that Punk and Vince argued about during his first run. Punk was trying to get him to watch MMA. Like this is going to be the future. This is going to be really
yeah, this is the
nah.
next.
No, that stuff's barbaric. Do you know that they're going to let women do that now?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Punk looked at him square in the face and said, "Yeah, and it's going to be fucking awesome." Anyways,
And
yeah,
then
the
Vince was
Strowman thing is
against it.
cool.
So,
The
and
Strowman thing is cool, and I can't believe that the people last week that were saying, "Oh my God, all these poor people that are left out in a lurch with nothing to do," are now upset that somebody has a new thing to do.
yeah, the fact
And I
that
mean,
he's
people
able
never
to go
on the other
out.
side of the coin. Miz hasn't been released, but like people are never going to give that dude his due
No,
ever.
sadly.
All right, so who's a dick? Kind of everybody.
Kind of
Fans that
everybody.
are
Yeah, you were absolutely right. It is everybody at this point.
kind of
Fans.
kind of mad that people are gonna carry on with their lives and do cool shit. I mean, if he's not gonna wrestle anymore, he's gonna get paid to go around the world and eat. And I've seen his co-host, and she's hot. So
Right? So
moving swiftly
great
on.
on him for him to
Um,
get that moment, ability, whatever you want to call it. And for him to have that option, great on him. It always sounds, and some people are like, oh, you're just jealous. But that's what a lot of this sounds like and comes from. It's a
yeah.
place of jealousy where they're just
But the other thing too, like for us as fans, right? Like I don't necessarily need to watch. Like I don't get the whole like food on TV thing because if I see food on my TV, I'm just going to be mad that I don't have food. I'm
yeah.
not a small person, right?
Yeah.
And I'm probably not going to watch American Gladiator either. But it's from a fan point of view, I don't get how it's not a win for guys and girls from our chosen thing, which is looked down on by the rest of the world, to go out into the rest of the world and make a further splash.
Yeah,
Like I say,
exactly.
with Jericho, to like branch out into stuff, to branch out into Hollywood, like The Rock did, and Hogan did, and Cena did, and Batista did, to branch out onto other forms of television. I mean, I wasn't a fan of Total Divas and Total Bellas, but they made an imprint there. American Gladiators. There's going to be one person that tunes into American Gladiators. Where's this goofball from? Oh, he's from WWE. Is that still around? Let me go see it. Is The Undertaker still in it? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Is that
Like
still a
that kind of
thing?
thing. Is this something? Is this anything? Like, how? It's a win for everybody. I'm losing my voice now. This
It
is
is,
going to
though. It
be
is a
bad.
win for everybody, and that's the thing that people seem to forget is that, hey, it's a positive all around. It's not a negative. It doesn't need to be viewed as one, but for some reason it
Mm.
gets carried on as such. So,
All right, moving on. You know who's not negative?
who's that?
or sorry, I should say, you know who I'm not negative about anymore?
Who's that? I'm curious.
Kenny Omega.
Yeah, he's done a
I've
lot
warmed
to
to
sway public opinion.
Yeah,
In
well, my opinion specifically, because I'm occasionally a stubborn person.
aren't we all, my
He's
friend?
he's come out and he's spoken out against the tribalism. He's come out and he's shown his kind of like Osprey as well. Shown his specific respect to specific things and specific people, even across the line as far as WWE goes. But he came out with some controversial statements in the past week or so. I'm not
Yeah.
upset with I'm not upset with his statements. I'm upset or kind of frustrated by the conversation that his comments have started.
Okay. I get
If
that.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Because he said something along the lines of, I look in other places and, they're something about like celebrity involvement and, we're forgetting what wrestling is. And I'm just afraid that one year I'm going to tune into WrestleMania and the main event is
Main event's gonna be
Logan Paul
yeah.
versus Mr. Beast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now for one thing, I know that Mr.
Which
Beast
talk
is
about
like,
that would be one of the biggest matches ever, I'm sure,
but
if
here's the
they
thing.
did it.
Here's the thing though, right? Is people didn't take this as okay, let's talk about celebrities at large and blah blah blah. They used it as, hey, Omega's with us and we all hate Logan. I don't know anything about Mr. Beast. I know
Yeah.
that he is a YouTube personality of some description, and that's it. So I don't have anything to say about Mr. Beast. What is frustrating to me is I do get what Omega is saying. Using Logan Paul as the example is kind of going to defeat the purpose.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm coming around to this, and
Because he doesn't
this is
represent
not
wrestling. He's an outsider still, or viewed as one.
who's that? Logan Paul.
Logan Paul, yeah.
This is my problem though, right? And it's not, oh, I'm going to stick up for my best buddy Logan because I think he's such a guy, right? He has not wrestled a whole lot, but he is, for all intents and purposes, on the roster. He's a former U.S. champion, for whatever
Yes.
you want to say that's worth and whatever. He is a competitor on the roster who kicks ass and isn't just there to throw a punch and then let everybody do everything.
No,
At what point?
He's gotten offers to do boxing events too for $15, $20 million, and he's passed them up because he wants to be serious about
He wants to do
WWE.
the WWE thing, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, is he treated differently because he's a celebrity within WWE? Yes.
I
But
don't
at
think
what
he is
point-
now. I think he was initially, but I feel like that
Yeah.
specialness is worn off, and now he's had to really like prove himself to the guys. Like he's not just in a Rumble quick
Yeah.
or in a Money in the Bank match. Like he's going for the world title. He's having
Okay,
big feuds.
here's something that's going to get me shot.
Uh-oh.
It's a little bit of the Osprey effect. Because
Yeah.
Osprey, when he used to show up in AEW and he was coming over from New Japan, because, AEW doesn't steal talent, only WWE does that.
That's it.
Now, nobody is surprised that Osprey's there anymore. He's just going to show up and do cool Osprey things. Right?
Exactly.
Now, nobody is surprised that Logan Paul is there anymore. He's not making a guest appearance. He's just there, and he's going to do cool Logan Paul things. And when I say cool Logan Paul things, before somebody gets in the comment section, I mean what he can do bell to bell. And if you
Yes.
think he can't do stuff bell to bell, you're just wrong.
You're absolutely
So,
misleading yourself because he's been
where this-
extremely impressive in the ring.
So where this became frustrating is here's Omega making a general statement about wrestling because, yeah, there's a lot. And not all of it is a hit.
No, not all of it.
Bad
There is a lot.
Bunny worked out pretty well. Pat McAfee, if you want to call him a guest, even though he's a commentator now. Logan Paul. There's been a couple others over the course of history. But I think he did himself a disservice. Like if he said Mr. Beast and I Show Speed are going to main event WrestleMania, he would have perfectly punctuated his point.
Yes.
I think
Using Logan doesn't.
choosing Logan Paul there opened up a door for other people to start an entirely different conversation just because they don't like Logan Paul and they don't want to admit that he's a wrestler.
And they don't want
So
to
I
give him
think-
credit, and that's what it comes
No,
down
they don't.
to is they view him as less than because of his origins. He wasn't on the indies
Okay,
earning his name.
if we can admit that Velveteen Dream is a terrible person but was a cool wrestler, if we can admit that Chris Benoit did terrible, horrible, unforgivable things, but before that he was a fantastic wrestler, then we can admit that the guy that you don't like on YouTube
on YouTube
is a good, like, okay, he's the anti Simon Miller.
Yes.
Like, is
He's
that
the
a good
complete
thing?
total opposite.
He's the complete total
Absolutely. He's the
opposite of Simon
negative.
Miller,
Yeah.
right? He's great. I've only seen a couple of good Simon Miller matches, only because I've only seen him live once, and everything else I've had to pull from YouTube.
Yeah.
Nobody is saying, "Hey, there's Simon Miller, the YouTuber," except when it's him himself and he's being like really self-deprecating with comedy and
Because
whatever,
he's
right?
worked past that. He's
Yeah,
been able
exactly.
to develop
But
a
what the
wealth
world
of
is
matches in history.
but what the wrestling world has decided with Logan Paul in this case is we're not going to let you work past, which
Yeah,
is kind of shit.
we're not going to
Which
give
is
you the
why
same
which is why
opportunity.
they try to which is why they crowbar him into this conversation that's being opened by Omega, who I think is coming at it from an honest point of view, and he's in it, so he's got a different point of view than we obviously.
Yeah,
I
certainly.
like shoot me, but like Logan Paul and Kenny Omega would be a really interesting match.
That would be a great match.
I don't
There's a
know whether
lot of
Kenny.
Kenny Omega stuff that I'd like to see happen still that
Yeah.
will probably never get the chance. You know, there was a point where I really thought that him and the Bucks were coming to WWE when they were messing around with the New Day. They had their whole Street Fighter tournament. Like before the AEW impotence happened, it really seemed like that was going to be the next logical step.
I would really like to see either Omega or Osprey face Finn Balor,
Yeah.
because I think it would be because Finn Balor's. I like Finn Balor. I'm pulling for Finn Balor to like finally pull away from Judgment Day and get sort of shot upwards, but at the same time, I don't really see it happening.
No, it
Anyways,
doesn't feel that same way.
my point being is Omega opened the door for the people that refuse to pull Logan out of that. Oh, there's just a couple of celebrities thrown about, and actually put him in that wrestler category. And
Yeah.
him choosing Logan Paul and Mr. Beast, I don't think he was trying to be disingenuous, but it's like,
I think
come
he
on,
was
man,
also
you
trying to take
kind
the
of.
two biggest names, but he also, like you said, he didn't do himself any
Yeah,
favors with.
but he's a smart guy, and I've heard him speak enough to know that like he's not talking out of his ass. Like he keeps an eye on what's going on in the world. It's like MJF. MJF said, "Yeah,
Yeah.
of course I watch WWE. If you're not watching what the whole world is doing, then how are we gonna,
Yeah. How do you learn?
be
How do you
part of it?"
grow?
Well, not even learn and grow, just like how do you?
How do you expect to be part? Yeah, involved in
Um,
anything?
but yeah, so I don't think that he's an asshole for what he said. I think there might have been maybe some better phrasing, and I think he unintentionally opened a door for people online, especially in the tribal discourse,
Yeah, to start some shitty
to
criticism.
get more on WWE as a whole, but specifically on the whole, like ramp up that whole Logan, we're not going to let you be a thing
Yeah,
conversation. But yeah, Omega's definitely not an asshole, but it is what it is.
but yeah, I mean, he's ingratiating himself with the fans. He's made some really good logical points, and he's made points against what the elite we thought stood for. Really. So a lot of that has
Okay.
been, I don't want to say surprising outright, but at least somewhat unexpected. You figure he would align more with the Bucks and Tony's side, but no, he's been level-headed and open to possibilities and other things happening. So
All right.
I
It's a
give
hell
him
of a list
credit.
we've got going on here. It's a hell of a list
Absolutely.
we got going on, and I've saved the last two specifically for the one and then the other nature of it. I'm going to tell you about people that are coming for NXT that shouldn't be, and then I'm going to come at NXT for something really stupid that I thought they did this week.
Ooh,
Borderline disrespectful.
okay.
Borderline disrespectful. But I'm going to go for the other fans first. NXT is a lot of fun. It's where everybody can sort of figure their shit out. You figure out your character. If something doesn't work, you do something else. It's also the landing pad for unexpected people, TNA people. Not we haven't had any Bloodsport people in, but we've had what's his name, Inamura from Noah. It's sort of a crossroads of a lot
Yeah.
of different things and a lot of really wacky things. Well, you got Chase U, you got the family, you got Culling, you've got the High Rise now. A lot of fun,
A high
wacky stuff.
rise. Yes,
Yeah, NXT is the wacky place to be, right?
exactly.
I don't think you could necessarily say NXT is the greatest place for like really, really heartfelt TV, like really deep. I
No,
don't think
I wouldn't say that
I I don't
either.
I don't think so either. But occasionally, and we touched on this yesterday, occasionally they hit on something that's actually like really cool, really feel good, really heartfelt, and it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Until people have to ruin it. Miles Bourne.
Usually, yes.
Miles Bourne grabbed the microphone to open NXT this past Tuesday and made himself a fucking star.
Yes, he really did.
Coming off the back of his win last week in the Battle Royal for the #1 contendership, nobody would have picked Miles Bourne.
No, not by a
And I
long
don't
shot.
and I don't
didn't
say that
assume
disrespectfully.
No, but he was also booked in a way where like you didn't expect him to win. Like
Well,
that's
he's like one of the sidekicks of Charlie Dempsey in a faction that's kind of seen as a mid-card faction, even though they're all quite good. But he came out, he cut a promo, he addressed the hearing issues that he's had his whole life. Not a pity party, but like let's talk about we beat around the bush long enough. I've been dealing with this my whole life, but I did hear you guys cheering for me last week, and I am going to hear Mike Rome call me the NXT champion when we get to stand and deliver. It does affect, thanks for listening to me. I know it affects the way I speak and whatever, but, and he says what people in his position would. Like, I don't want to be just known as deaf kid. I want to be seen for my abilities, not my. I'm going to show other people.
not my disabilities. I want to be seen for my abilities. And
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
a big thing
I
to
love that
stand
line,
back.
right?
It's a great
Because it's
line.
it's one of those lines that could be accused of sounding cheesy, but it's cheesy in the right way, and I think that's a huge point to land on, right?
Absolutely.
And then
because it's based
up
in
until
realism and it has an actual
Yeah.
point behind it. He is
Yeah.
legitimately hard of hearing,
yeah,
and
of course, yeah. And I mean, they've always sort of joked around with it backstage within his own group. Like he pretends he doesn't hear Charlie saying something or this, that, and the next thing. But they've never, and I think this is something you wouldn't be able to say about WWE. They've joked about it, but they've never made him joke.
Yes, they've never outright.
Which is very important.
Yeah.
We get into a lot of conversations about like what topics should wrestling handle and not handle. We did the little spiel about the mental health stuff not too long ago, right? And I think they're handling it well. And this is me. I'm the WWE guy. But 10 years ago, I wouldn't have given
No, I
right?
wouldn't have given them
Really
the benefit
cool.
of the doubt there. And
really cool thing. He got it. I think as much as you can and still stay in kayfabe, I think you got to go out there and speak from the heart for a little bit before you got the interruption from Ethan Page that set up the match for the night. And Ethan Page took the shots at him. That was very clearly, I am a heel in a story telling a joke within the story as a heel character in the fiction. We're good, right? I think it's all been handled incredibly well. So we can all come together. We can all come together on this, right? We can all be happy that something like this is being addressed in such a positive, empowering way, right? We can all be normal on X, right?
Right.
No, WWE's turning disability into a gimmick.
Yeah.
The same. I'm sorry. The same week that Ricochet is facing Zach Gowen. What fucking year is this?
Yeah.
And beating him with his own prosthetic leg.
The only reason they did that, too, was because of the random moment that happened by happenstance. It was just a chance opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, no, but what happened initially was WWE, during the TLC match, Montez Ford went ahead and used the audience member's prosthetic leg, and it started this whole thing.
Oh, fuck, you did too. I didn't even think of that.
Yep. And then AEW
reading
was
all WWE's homework.
We could do that too. And that's what it felt like. Like they just went ahead and tried to copy WWE's homework, and then they're like, but we could do it better.
They've got a commentator in a match coming up soon as well.
Oh, see? And not that they can't do it, but it's always right after something big happens or something stand out. And that was such a great organic moment. You had a fan throw his prosthetic leg to Montez Ford. He used it gently as a weapon, and everybody cheered and thought it was amazing. So now AEW.
Remember when they did the first Anarchy in the arena? Remember when they did the first Anarchy in the arena and they tried to pretend that Sammy Guevara was the first wrestler ever to comedically drive around in a golf cart?
Yes. They tried. They tried hard to go with that one,
but like, I'm sorry, like. And to say, just because it's Zach Gowen, and you can make the reference to Zach Gowen and what he did in WWE like 20 years ago, that wasn't handled very well.
No.
That wasn't handled very respectful. Like, the difference between, and like, take AEW out of the equation, right? Look at how they handled Zach Gowen back then and how they handled Miles Bourne this week.
Yeah, exactly. And what a difference it is.
It's not about pretending that WWE have never been in dicks. Or sorry, that WWE sorry, the WWE have never been dicks before.
Yes.
It's about who's the dick now.
Exactly. And WWE has done a lot wrong, but I feel like they've also grown from a lot of it. They've changed their ways, and not in a PR like, "Hey, we're just doing this to," they
Yep.
they actually have brought out real stories for the women's wrestling. They've,
Yep.
made people have things that
I've
actually
said it at work
matter.
when I've had a bad day at work or I've dealt with somebody who decides to be a dickhead at work. For those of you, most of you guys know this. I work in a warehouse. I deal with truck drivers most of the day. 99% of truck drivers are awesome, by the way. Be nice to them. But every now and then you meet somebody that
You get
just
the
it
one.
just make
Yeah,
you get the one, and everybody has their bad day, right? But
exactly.
my phrase at work used to be like, it's so easy to get up in the morning, look in the mirror, say, you know what, I'm gonna try not being a dick today. And so many people don't do it.
Yeah. People
But like,
just like being the asshole. They like
never
feeling to be
okay,
the
but this is
victims.
what I'm gonna take the yes, stand up for WWE. Like people tried to turn that into a bad thing, but I am gonna do it in this case. But like, take the company out of the equation for a second. Look at the person Miles Bourne and who's trying to have this heartfelt moment, who's never really had a chance to get out on a mic in front of the crowd before, let alone speak his mind, let alone speak from the heart, show his appreciation
Yeah.
to the fans or whatever. And now you fans that are so rabid to call WWE something bad have now told him that his real life story is a gimmick.
Yeah, he's invalid,
And
which
that's
which is what he's
fucking
fighting
bullshit.
against. The literal
Exactly.
thing that he's attempting to stop, they're promoting and pushing, and that's
You've
what
made an
kills me about
Olympic
it.
you've made an Olympic sport out of missing the point.
Yes, thank you.
And it's one of those things like and it like wrestling is not like this super sappy thing all the time, but it did get me. Like we got out there and I thought it was just gonna be like, oh, rabble, rabble, rabble. I'm gonna beat Oba on Battleground. I don't think he
Yeah,
is. I mean, if they shock the world with this,
could be great.
it would be awesome.
Yeah,
But
oh my
like
god, talk
the
about getting
the
behind somebody.
the only way they do that is if Oba Femi's showing up on Raw tomorrow.
Yeah, like unless they have
Fair enough.
some big plan, and it feels like he and Trick aren't even done. So
Yeah. Well, it feels like Charlie is gonna play up the I'm jealous of this guy and he's supposed to be under me in this group, and then he's gonna turn to the fans and do the whole, well, you only got behind this guy because you pity him, and like I can see
yeah,
the story playing out, and it'll be like this big conquering because they've never, to be fair and critical, mind you, they've never really known whether no catch crew or babyface or heel
yeah, they've kind of
because
been
Ren
wondering.
Sinclair kind of comes off as a likable babyface.
Yeah, every
Miles
Wednesday,
Bourne, Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights are just sort of like get over in the ring guys,
Yeah,
but like Charlie Dempsey always comes off as like either heel or at the
or
very
uh,
or at the very least neutral.
a dick. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's one of those like somebody suggested it, and I think I've shit on What Culture enough, but I think Michael Hamflet, who's a lot nicer out of that group, suggested the whole thing where Charlie Dempsey tries to kick Miles Bourne out of the group and says, "No, we're with him. You can fuck off."
yeah.
That would
This
be a nice, cool, feel good thing.
Absolutely, and it's
And
that
then and
simple
then
of
him and
something to
Tavion
create.
go and get the tag title, or have like a best of 7 series with Hank and Tank.
Yeah, something
Be great. It'd be awesome.
worthwhile would be absolutely fantastic. And like you said, there's ways to go with it. He doesn't need to win the title here. They could do it as a shock. We doubt they would, but not because they don't want to. It's just not the time for it. But if it actually stood
No.
to be a beneficial thing, they would do it now. They would give it to a new guy, a young guy. They would try it on people, and that's what
Mhm.
we are seeing. And that's sadly, I haven't watched Dynamite live,
Mm.
never mind live, but like in
Oh.
full in ages. And watching last night
Oh.
with the cage match disaster that it was, and then the reveal of, as we brought up before, Kid and all that. It was just very tediously boring, and
Okay,
nothing. The
here's something I'll
matches
give
will
you,
be
right?
good, but there's no story. There's no
I I
substance for me
don't
to
I
care
don't want to
about.
derail us too much because I've only got 1
No.
point left, and I'm actually going to be critical of NXT. So anybody that thinks I licked the boot, stay tuned for a second. One thing the WWE gets criticized for, rightfully so. I don't think it's fair to say that they're the only ones that do it, but the promo train,
Yeah.
right? Somebody's cutting a promo, they get cut off, and then they get cut off by a third person, they get cut off by a fourth person, and it's a big schmoz. And to the surprise of nobody, the GM eventually comes out and says it's going to be a tag team. Like, it's very played out, it's very cliche, it's very formulaic and by the numbers type of thing, right?
Yeah.
What happened at the end of Dynamite last night was the physical version of a promo train.
Yes. The full embodiment.
Is that fair? Am I out of line with that?
Absolutely.
I don't think it was all terrible. Like, the reveal of Gabe Kidd kind of fell flat.
Yeah.
The rest of it, like, there are little tiny bits of stories that they're kind of weaving together. I'll give them the credit for that. Each person that got involved did make sense. Except for at one random period, a random Speedball Bailey appeared.
Yeah.
For reasons,
then
but the rest,
Willow be their Bailey and try and make her stand.
Oh
out.
yeah, the whole we've got 3 women's matches on the card because we're gonna throw the women into the Anarchy in the arena match. No, that's not how any of this works. Is this something? Is this anything? No,
exactly.
Some chicks or whatever, lick a tit or whatever.
Either
All right, buckle up, because Spaz is actually going to get mad at NXT.
Yes, what's your last point here, sir, about NXT?
All right, because I think the dicks are NXT in this case. I'll precursor it with that. We had a lot of releases a little while ago. I put out a podcast about it. I don't think it was I don't think it was super positive, but I think I was pretty fair and realistic about where things are and where I think people could go, and it's not the end of the world.
Business,
blah 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 blah. Right? Twice on NXT, they took the piss out of the releases, and I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, they did it with Tatum.
Okay, I'm going to get to Tatum in a second because that's the bigger one.
All right.
Smaller one was when Bully and Undertaker were on screen, which, of course, sent Twitter into another spiral. But they were there with the LFG finalists, and then they were interrupted by, I think, Jasmine Nix and Nikita Lyons. And then on the other side, they were interrupted by Lash Legend, and now playing the part of Jakara Jackson, Lola Vice.
Yeah.
If you ever want to levy like criticisms or accusations at WWE about how they treat the women and how everybody's just interchangeable and nobody really means anything, they just literally swapped out one person for another. Yeah, and it's Lola Vice, who's already doing a pretty good ass job on her own. So Lash Legend has just got another partner. It's fine, everything's cool. And Lola Vice is now going to be in a tag team when she was kicking ass on her own for a while.
Yeah,
nobody wins there.
No.
Nobody wins there. But no, as you got to the point before I did, the Tatum Paxley thing was really bothered because she's playing the crazy person, and I get it when you've got a crazy character. I like the crazy characters.
Yeah,
I am like CM Punk. I do crazy chicks.
Absolutely.
But when she goes up and she's kind of moderately turned heel overnight, which is kind of shit, but also she's going over and trying to break up other groups of friends because friends aren't real. All friends do is abandon you. My friends abandon me. You cannot fire 2 awesome talents and then have a character on screen say, well, yeah, they weren't fired. They just decided to abandon us.
Yeah, they left me.
That's really fucked.
See, I appreciated NXT at least making note of it in some
acknowledging
way.
It, yes.
Yeah, but looking back at it, I didn't take it that way at first, but looking back on it, that is a great point. And
it's the only thing I can compare it to is when
because I did say it was odd they turned her heel, but I get what they were going for. They were trying to see her mania get over, and look, she can't win the match because she wants to rip her eye out, and scary.
Well, the match is what it is. I like Tatum Paxley. I like Thea Hale.
Yeah,
like the match was fine. Match was so separate. Like the only 2 things I can think of is House of Cards when Kevin Spacey went through the legal stuff that he went through, not saying anything one way or the other about that. But then they went ahead and did another season with Robin Wright as the main character because we just sort of killed Frank Underwood off screen and fuck him. And she like went and like metaphorically pissed on his grave.
Yeah.
Like you've now removed the actor and now you're going to slaughter them on screen when they can't do anything about it. Same thing with Charlie Sheen when he was kicked off 2.5 Men.
Yeah, they had him crushed by the piano.
And they had the funeral for him where everybody came to his funeral to basically shit on him.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, they turned it into a literal roasting of Charlie Sheen.
You and I have said this a lot. I mean, you and I first started doing this because I wanted somebody to specifically talk NXT with, right?
Yeah.
We expect bad shit from the main roster occasionally. We expect
Yes.
bad shit from AEW. We don't watch ROH, right? NXT, we're on board with NXT. They've given us enough that we hold them to a high standard.
Yes.
I I would shit on the main roster for this.
Oh, absolutely.
I would shit on AEW if they did this. I would shit on
Absolutely.
TNA if they did this. If I watched ROH and they did this, I would shit on them. I don't know how you would work this into a Destiny situation because that's a little bit different. But if
But
they did
even
something
still,
like
if
this,
they did something
I would
you
shit
would
on
be
them.
upset with. If they let go a bunch of talent and
At the
then
very
basically turned around
yeah,
and said, "Oh, the talent just left everybody." They didn't really, yeah.
my expectations of AEW are bargain basement, and I would shit on them for this. I
Absolutely.
hold NXT to a fucking standard, especially with the women's division, because they didn't like. I don't want to sound like the people that come for WWE. They didn't do this for the dudes, and they didn't do this with any of the. Like Lash Legend was there. She wasn't saying, "Oh fuck, I'm so glad Oro Mensa's gone,"
Yeah,
or something
no.
like that.
They didn't
They
do that
did
at
it with
all.
like you cannot remove somebody from the situation and then paint them as the ones that tucked tail and ran,
Yeah, that they're the problem.
or abandon their love, abandon supporters or whatever.
Yeah, they didn't follow through on their
And
morals, whatever you wanna
like this was really
spin it
fucked.
as.
NXT, you fucked up on this one.
I
NXT are the assholes.
I do agree. See, and my live reaction to NXT, I didn't think of it that way, but it does make perfect sense to put it in that light. Because initially I was like, well,
And
at least they
like
mentioned it, but
the Tatum one, yeah, and I want to give them that credit, but
the way they
like
handled it.
you couldn't, but like you could just say like, hey, I'm missing my friends, they're not here anymore. But to specifically have the only one of that left say, yeah, they just up and abandoned me.
Yeah, and you could
So
say,
the
"Oh, well, she's
last
a heel. That's how she thinks. She's treating it that way." But still,
But
the way it's being
the last
presented.
mention, the last mention of their characters on screen is painted in such a negative light.
Yeah.
And Jakara Jackson's is even worse in a way because what you've done without saying anything is just, she was replaceable anyway
Yep. We
as
didn't need
Lash
her.
Legend's partner. But that was sort of unsaid, the Tatum Paxley thing backstage. And I don't put it on Tatum either. Everybody, please understand this. This
No,
is
she's
not me
doing as
coming
she's told. Yeah.
for her. Yeah. But that was really fucked. Really, really disappointed. Really, and as I say, I'm gonna keep saying it. It's twice as disappointing because I expect better. I'm not
Yeah,
mad. I'm not
especially
mad. I'm disappointed. No, I'm mad and
no, I
that was
understand
really
that, and
fucked up.
especially with NXT, that is the truth. I mean, because we do
Yeah.
expect higher from them. We do expect better.
Yeah.
We do often get something that is more worthwhile and handled at least more with kid gloves.
Yeah.
So,
It's like you say, like when you wanted to give it the positive benefit of the doubt, at least they acknowledged it. They didn't treat the fans as stupid or whatever.
yeah.
They did it the wrong way, which
Yes,
is
I
worse.
agree.
This
Because my
what they
initial
did,
thinking of it, I didn't care, but looking back, you're
yeah,
like, "Ah, yeah, shit."
because addressing it on screen, you got to do it right. Because there's three layers to it. You can address it the right way, not address it at all, or do what they did. I think what they did on television from and maybe the wrestlers themselves don't care. Like maybe Priscilla Kelly and Shotzi Blackheart don't care. Maybe it's just
Yeah.
me. Maybe it just bugged me as a viewer. As
It's
a
not
viewer that's fans of theirs, right?
yeah.
So maybe they don't care. Maybe I'm blowing smoke for no reason. But I thought that was really crass. And I think what they did was worse than not acknowledging it.
So I get that entirely. So we went through a lot of assholes today, and we finish off with even
Ah,
NXT
pause.
being an asshole.
Pause. Everybody's a dick. Coach is a dick. Velveteen Dream's a dick. The bottle guy is a dick. AEW brackets general are dicks. Ricochet's a dick, but so is Javon, so I guess it's fine. People coming after Strowman and The Miz for being successful are dicks. People hating on anybody that dares to sign their name on a WWE are dicks. If you're shitting on Miles Bourne for having a nice moment and getting his first real promo on television and getting to tell his story, you're a dick. And
Yeah.
NXT, I have your back a lot. This week, you were dicks. Don't do it.
We find
Dicks
everybody
and assholes.
guilty.
Dicks and assholes. You know who's not a
Absolutely.
dick? You know who's not a dick, my friend? You. And if they
Hey,
don't, if they want to see somebody who's not a dick and not an asshole, where can they find you?
you can find me on YouTube at Jake Countdown Ended DeMarco, or you can go ahead and find me on Instagram, on Rumble, on Twitter, all at Countdown Ended as well. And then you'll see me here on the State of Wrestling.
Boom. And you guys know where to find me, or you wouldn't be here. If you're still with me after all of that, find me on social media. Find me on X/Twitter at Spaz Phoenix. Find me on Instagram at Spaz Phoenix. Find me wherever you found me, but also find me on Spotify, on Amazon, on iTunes, on Rumble. I'm really trying to get my numbers up on Rumble, so if you guys can help me with that, I'd appreciate it. But yes, I am still on the tubes of you as well, all at Spaz Phoenix Podcast. Yeah, this has been it. This is us talking about a lot of assholes. This has been the State of Wrestling, version 2 for the lucky people that you are. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later. Now I am tagging out. Bye, guys.
Everyone's an asshole.